Chapter 541. Xiao Wanru looked at the aggressive female servants and then at Nanny Yu with her face darkening. Nanny Yu, what do you mean? Yujia and Chu Lu immediately stood beside Xiao Wanru and looked at Nanny Yu warily. I just want you to hurry up. I'm afraid that old madam will be angry if you miss the time. I hope you won't be angry. Nanny Yu said politely, but she didn't look polite. In the past, when she saw Xiao Wanru, she would smile before saying anything. But today, the smile on her face was much fainter, and it was almost a fake smile. Was she going to take action? Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart, reached out to straighten her sleeves, and then said as if nothing had happened, since Grandma is so anxious, lead the way, Nanny Yu. Seeing that Xiao Wanru didn't resist, Nanny Yu nodded and turned to leave with a group of people. In the corridor, Xiao Yenru looked at all this with a smile on her face. She slightly raised the round fan in her hand to hide the complacency on her face. Xiao Wanru suddenly stopped at the gate of the courtyard, looked back at the corridor, and met Xiao Yenru's eyes. Then she smiled at Xiao Yenru, lifted the corner of her dress, and walked out of the courtyard. The smile on Xiao Yenru's face froze, and then she threw out the round fan in her hand. The exquisite round fan immediately broke to the ground and said, Bitch, do you really think that you are great because you are the granddaughter of great elder princess? As long as your surname is Xiao, you have to be coerced by grandma. How can you still smile when you are about to die? First miss, don't be angry. The fifth miss is fearless because she is ignorant. She may think that you are just going to see old madam and think that old madam must think that she is more important and more favored than you. Shuqi hurriedly comforted her carefully. Her words made Xiao Yenru feel comfortable. She snorted and said, only she is so ignorant. She really thinks that grandma likes and dotes on her. She doesn't know how powerful she is. That's right. How can she compare with you? You are not only talented but also beautiful. Everyone in the capital city knows that you are the first beauty in the capital city. No, I'm wrong. You are the first beauty in the country of Dongsang. Shuqi hurriedly said. With a complacent look on her face, Xiao Yenru sneered and turned around proudly. She really shouldn't argue with her. How could she argue with her? Her mother said that she was a noble cloud in the sky and was destined to look down from the sky. She would not do anything for Xiao Wanru. Xiao Yenru said. She would not be so. When Xiao Wanru was brought to old madam was sitting with a gloomy face. She found a fragrant room nearby and did not ask for much. Xiao Yenru was going to go. Xiao Wanru came in, bowed to old madam, and said gracefully, Grandma. Taoist priest Shoshue's eyes involuntarily fell on Xiao Wanru's face. She found that although Xiao Wanru was not very old, she was extremely beautiful. Her skin was as delicate as jade, and her watery eyes were as clear as water. Just by glancing at her, Xiao Wanru felt that her whole body had melted. Xiao Wanru's pink cherry lips were red, and she was so fresh and beautiful that all the women around her became a contrast. She had never seen such a woman even though she had been in and out of aristocratic families' mansions all year round. She was so fascinated by you that the horsetail whisk in her hand almost fell to the ground. A little Taoist nun standing behind her reached out and pulled her sleeve, which saved her from losing her composure. Someone, shave her hair. Old madam clenched her fists and said sternly with an ugly face. A few female servants, who had been prepared, came over and were about to force Xiao Wanru to kneel down. Someone else took out a razor and was about to shave Xiao Wanru's hair. On the way here, old madam had discussed with Taoist Yenru that the best way was to shave her hair directly. At that time, even if Rui and great elder princess came forward, it would be impossible for her to save her. As for the Yuhui nunnery, if they didn't accept her, they could send her to another nunnery, the smaller and the farther, the better. Yujia and Chu Lu were so anxious that they took 2 steps forward to protect Xiao Wanru. However, old madam brought a lot of people, who were all strong and well prepared. 2 of them fought against 1 servant girl, so Chu Lu was restrained at once. However, Yujie was so strong that 2 female servants couldn't fight against her. Old Madam nodded slightly. 2 more female servants came over immediately. One of the remaining 2 held a razor, and the other was about to press Xiao Wanru down. Xiao Wanru shouted sternly, "How dare you? Who dares to do it?" She looked gentle and had always been gentle. She had never been so fierce. The 2 female servants were shocked. They involuntarily took 2 steps back and looked up at Old Madam in a hurry. "How dare you? How dare you?" Old Madam patted the railing of her chair hard and said angrily. She had always been a woman of her word in the mansion, and there had never been a grandson who disobeyed her in front of so many people. Xiao Wanru looked around and finally fixed her eyes on Old Madam. Her eyes were cold and sharp with a bit of bloodthirst. Her beautiful eyes, which should have been a little gentle, were gloomy and angry. She said, "What do you mean, Old Madam? Even if you want to sentence someone to death, you should at least let him die knowing. Old Madam, you set up a court privately. Is there any law? I am your grandmother. You are an unfilial daughter. How dare you disobey me?" Old Madam was so angry that her liver hurt and said bitterly. "Disobey you? Old Madam, you really think highly of yourself. If Old Madam wants to harm me for no reason and pretends that I am not allowed to disobey you, does it mean that you regard yourself as the Empress Dowager? No one in the world can disobey the Empress Dowager's decree. Even the Emperor has to be filial to the Empress Dowager according to filial piety." Xiao Wanru said word by word. She stared at Old Madam with her watery eyes without dodging or even a trace of fear. "How dare you?" Old Madam shivered. If such words were spread out, it would be rebellious and would bring trouble to Duke Xing's mansion. "Old Madam, it's hard to say whether I am bold or not. Old Madam's way of covering the truth with one hand is really difficult to be accepted. If Old Madam doesn't say anything today, I will let the whole Duke Xing's mansion die with me even if my blood is spilled on the spot," Xiao Wanru said sternly without flinching. She was still young, but her momentum was amazing. When her watery eyes met Old Madam's eyes, she seemed to be able to see through the hidden filth in Old Madam's heart. Although Old Madam wanted to slap Xiao Wanru in the face, she still held back and said sternly, "You bring bad luck to your parents, and you have the evil spirit. Today, your bracelets and longevity lock are covered with black insects, which is proof. Now you don't want to pray for the whole mansion, but you are still sentimentally attached to the secular world and ignore your relatives. You are really a vicious and selfish person. Vicious and selfish? Moreover, you bring bad luck to my father and mother. I remember that everyone said that Old Madam forced my father and mother out of the mansion and that their deaths were caused by Old Madam. Is Old Madam bringing bad luck to her children, daughter-in-law, and relatives? Then why doesn't Old Madam become a nun and pray for the sins she has committed?" Xiao Wanru sneered and said in a neither humble nor arrogant manner. Since they were ruthless, she had no intention to do so. She had no sense of belonging or affection for Duke Xing's mansion, so she would not feel wronged at this time. In the last life, all the people of Duke Xing's mansion watched her sink into depravity and helped others trample on her, leaving her in a deep stain. She didn't believe that Old Madam, who seemed kind but was actually shrewd and ruthless, didn't know anything. But even so, she still watched Xiao Yenru and her daughter trample her into a bloody hell. With what had happened in the last life, in this life, she didn't need to care about this kind of weak blood kinship. She just wanted to see how Duke Xing's mansion would decline in this life. Even if Duke Xing's mansion did not decline, she would drag Duke Xing's mansion down and bury it with her in the last life. Old Madam didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would say that she brought bad luck to her children and daughter-in-law. She was so angry that her face twitched. She slapped the table with her hand, making the teacups on the table jump up and said, "How dare you talk to an elder like this? Servants, the 5th Miss is possessed by the black evil spirit and speaks insolently and viciously. Hurry up and do it." 2 rough old maids got the order and were about to come over and reach out to catch Xiao Wanru. There came a low cough from the side and Taoist priest Shoshue's soft voice, "Old Madam, wait a minute. I still have something to say. Since Taoist priest Xiushui said, old madam waved her hand, suppressed the anger in her heart, picked up the teacup at hand and drank half of it in one gulp. Only then did she feel relieved. At that moment, she was almost driven to death by this little girl. Old madam, I think the fifth miss has a very strong black evil spirit. I'm afraid that ordinary temples can't suppress it. Why don't you follow me to the Baiyun Taoist temple? After all, I have suppressed this kind of black evil spirit before, so I will never let you be affected. Go to the Baiyun Taoist temple. Doesn't it mean that she can't shave her hair? Old madam looked at Taoist priest Xiushui in confusion. On the way here, they had discussed it. They had agreed that Xiao Wanru must shave her hair. Otherwise, if Rui and Great Elder Princess got the news, she could still take Xiao Wanru down the mountain. Xiao Wanru could only shave her hair and press the incense seal on her head. Even if Rui and Great Elder Princess wanted to take Xiao Wanru back, she couldn't. Moreover, even if Rui and Great Elder Princess dared to go against the rules of the world and take Xiao Wanru back, Xiao Wanru's hair had fallen and the incense seal had been pressed. It would take her 7 or 8 years to recover her hair length. In addition, who would dare to marry a nun who had returned to the secular world? At that time, no matter what the situation was, Xiao Wanru could not be worried. However, the Taoist nun was different. The Taoist nun's hair was still there, but her clothes had been changed. It was very easy to change back. Moreover, the Taoist nun could return to the secular world and get married in the previous dynasty. Although it had been a period of time since the previous dynasty, people could still accept the Taoist nun wanting to get married. Old madam had heard a gossip from Nanny Yu about the Taoist nun returning to the secular world, which was said to be a popular story in the local area. She hurried up the mountain in order to deal with Xiao Wanru before Rui and Great Elder Princess reacted. When Rui and Great Elder Princess found out, it would be too late. Chapter 542. Seeing old madam's sullen face, Taoist priest Xiushui knew that old madam was very unhappy. She smiled slightly and said, "Old madam, don't worry. Didn't I say that she wouldn't shave her head? You can put her in my Baiyun Taoist temple first. After I find an auspicious day to shave her head and then have an incense stick applied to her eyes. The effect will be much better than today's hasty shave." Old madam didn't say anything and just glanced at Taoist priest Xiushui. Taoist priest Xiushui immediately understood that old madam was afraid that Rui and Great Elder Princess would rush up the mountain after getting the news and take her away. She immediately comforted old madam with a smile. "Old madam, you just come up the mountain today to have a look. I'll take her away along with several maids, and others don't know it. Even if the officials of the Ministry of Justice know it, they will only think that the fifth miss has gone to practice Taoism with me. After a few days, I'll shave her hair officially and report it to Rui and Great Elder Princess." Taoist priest Xiushui said with a smile and involuntarily looked at Xiao Wanru. Such a beautiful girl, who could only appear in paintings, was very like the beautiful as jade mentioned in books, and it was a pity to shave her black hair. She was a little reluctant to shave her hair. He had to have some fun with it before he could get rid of her beautiful hair. Old madam thought for a while and finally nodded. She was in a hurry to go up the mountain today and would go down later. In such a short time, Rui and Great Elder Princess would definitely not know that she had secretly taken Xiao Wanru away. As for the others in the Yuhui nunnery, her eldest granddaughter had always been capable, so she could appease them. None of the nuns in the temple dared to tell Rui and Great Elder Princess. However, she could afford to wait for a few days. "Okay, as you said, Taoist priest, please take care of her in the future." Old madam nodded and agreed, thinking that it was okay. Xiao Wanru sneered beside her. The two of them were talking about how to deal with her in front of her, but they didn't ask her, the person involved. How disgusting. Taoist priest Xiushui's eyes involuntarily glanced over again. When he met a pair of cold and gloomy eyes, he couldn't help but shiver in his heart. This fifth miss was beautiful, but her eyes were too cold. Only a glance from her eyes could make people feel that their whole body was frozen. Next time when we have sex, I must cover her eyes. At that time, it will be more interesting. Thinking of this, Madame Dowager's whole body softened and she couldn't wait to take this charming little beauty away immediately. Looking at old Madame's face, she couldn't stay any longer. With such a beautiful little beauty, she had not lived in vain in this life. As for shaving her head, she would not do it. The little beauty's hair was so beautiful, and it would be a pity to shave her head. Moreover, she had to press on a few eyeballs. That was really unreasonable. She wanted to hide the little beauty and casually report that she had died of illness. Anyway, it was old Madame of Duke Xing's mansion who made trouble, so whatever happened in the future had nothing to do with her. With her good reputation, she didn't believe that she could be involved in this matter. As soon as old Madame agreed, the two female servants rushed over to catch Xiao Wanru. At this time, Xiao Wanru had retreated to a table, picked up the teapot on the table, and threw it at the two female servants. The two maidservants were startled and hurriedly retreated. They were too fast, and they tripped over each other and fell heavily to the ground. At this time, the teapot also smashed over and fell at their feet. A few pieces of flying porcelain pierced their bodies, and they screamed in pain. "How dare you! How dare you!" Old Madame trembled with anger and pointed at Xiao Wanru with a trembling finger. She just hoped that Xiao Wanru would die at this time and said, "Catch her and tie her up." "Old Madame, who are you going to tie up?" A cold voice suddenly came from the door. Everyone looked up at the door and saw Rui, a great elder princess walking in with her head held high, surrounded by a large group of servant girls and old maids. At first glance, it could be seen that she had brought much more people than old Madame. Moreover, two guards even appeared in the end to protect Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess came over and sat on the left side of old Madame. She looked at the ground coldly and asked, "What's going on?" The two female servants didn't dare to cry out in pain anymore and just secretly looked at old Madame. Yuchia suddenly pushed away the four female servants who held her, rushed to Rui, and Great Elder Princess, and cried loudly, "Great Elder Princess, please save my Mississippi." Old Madame came up to the mountain today and without hesitation, she wanted to shave my Miss's hair, press her eyelids, and make my Miss become a nun. Become a nun? Rui, and Great Elder Princess tilted her head and looked at old Madame with an arrogant and fierce face. "Old Madame, do you mean that you plan to make all the misses in your mansion become nuns? Why don't I see the first miss of your mansion but only see Zhuozhua being restrained here? Does old Madame want to hurt Zhuozhua?" Seeing Rui, and Great Elder Princess come in, old Madame shook her body and almost fell down, but she had to force herself to answer. Fifth girl's silver bracelets were dug out in the Buddha hall before. Others' silver bracelets were all fine, but fifth girl's silver bracelets were strange, with a layer of black insects on them. I was afraid that this matter was strange, so I specially looked for fifth girl's longevity lock. I heard that this longevity lock was still in Great Elder Princess's mansion, but when it was taken out, it was also covered with insects. I have never heard of this kind of thing. I wanted to ask the nun of Yuhui Nunnery to explain this matter, but Puming nun of Yuhui Nunnery said that Yuhui Nunnery was not good at this kind of thing, so she asked me to find Taoist nun Xiushui of Baiyun Taoist Temple. Taoist nun said that fifth girl was possessed by a black evil spirit and should be worshipped in front of the Buddha. Otherwise, all the elders would be affected. Old Madame said calmly. Rui, and Great Elder Princess was also an elder, so she didn't believe that Rui, and Great Elder Princess would not care about it at all. Black evil spirit? Rui, and Great Elder Princess looked at Taoist nun Xiushui opposite her. Taoist nun Xiushui stood up, bowed deeply to Rui, and Great Elder Princess, and then explained, "It is indeed the black evil spirit. Such black evil spirit has affected 6 relatives, so it is a very evil thing. If it is allowed to grow and multiply, it will inevitably cause big trouble in the end. Any elder who is related to her will easily get into trouble." Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on Taoist nun Xiushui. She couldn't see it when she was sitting just now. Now seeing her stand up, she found that she was much taller than ordinary women. She was slender and delicate. When she smiled on her face, she looked like an immortal, which made her inexplicably trustworthy. Xiao Wanru curled her lips silently. No wonder everyone held this Taoist priest Shuxue in such high esteem. No matter in his previous life or this life, many aristocratic families had to beg him thousands of times just to invite him down the mountain. Moreover, it was said that his magic was not bad and he seemed to have some attainments in Taoism. But in fact, Taoist Nun Shuxue was not a woman, but a man. He used to be a failed scholar and had an affair with the abbess of the Taoist temple. Later, he sneaked into the Taoist temple and gradually became the abbess. In the last life, the reason why Taoist Nun Shuxue was exposed was that she was a beautiful miss from an aristocratic family. It was said that this miss went up the mountain to worship the three pure ones and was raped by Taoist Nun Shuxue when she lived on the mountain. This miss was fierce. After coming back, she told her family about it and then killed herself by hitting the wall. The family rushed to the Taoist temple angrily and took Taoist Nun Shuxue to the government office. At first, Taoist Nun Shuxue tried every means to quibble. Later, she took off her clothes and checked on the spot. Then, the truth changed greatly. The entire Baiyun Taoist temple was searched. It was said that many beautiful women were released from it. When they went to the Taoist temple alone, they were forced to stay by Taoist Nun Shuxue and then hidden in the cellar of the Baiyun Taoist temple for several years. Black evil spirit. Rui and Great Elder Princess sneered. Do you mean this kind of ant? Nanny Gao stepped forward and took out a small box from her arms. Everyone looked into it and found that there was an ant in it, which was much bigger than an ordinary ant. Even if there was only one ant, it was a little uncomfortable to look at. Old Madam sighed and looked gentle. She said helplessly, Great Elder Princess, I have no choice. I can't let the fifth young lady harm so many people in the mansion. Let her stay in front of the Buddha first. If she succeeds in the future, I will let her return to secular life. Is this the cause of the black evil spirit? Great Elder Princess ignored Old Madam, who was putting on airs, and looked at Taoist priest Shuxue. It's true. I've calculated with my fingers. If I don't get rid of the black evil spirit, not to mention Duke Xing's mansion, even Great Elder Princess and the younger brother of the fifth miss will probably. Taoist priest Shuxue said with a compassionate look on his face. He really looked like a master who had achieved the Tao and was very noble and pure. Xiao Wanru was furious. She could tolerate Old Madam and the fake Taoist priest saying that she was an evil being with the black evil spirit and could harm her parents, but she would never allow others to curse her maternal grandmother and younger brother. In the last life, her maternal grandmother and younger brother did not end well. In this life, she would never allow them to do that. She touched a cup beside her hand, picked it up, and smashed it hard at Taoist priest Shuxue with a bloodthirsty look in her fierce eyes. No one expected that she would suddenly make a move. Taoist priest Shuxue was hit, and there was a trace of water on the cup, which soaked his clothes. The teacup fell to the ground with a crisp sound of breaking. Old Madam's face turned blue, then green, and finally white. She glared at Xiao Wanru, seeming to hate her to the core. Xiao Wanru raised her head slightly, which was a little similar to Great Elder Princess's. Seeing this, Old Madam became more and more angry. At this moment, she had no time to care about Rui and Great Elder Princess. She picked up the teacup beside her and was about to smash it at Xiao Wanru, while scolding, You evil creature, you are indeed possessed by an evil being. How dare you smash a Taoist priest? Do you look like a lady from a noble family? As she said, she was about to smash the teacup with trembling hands. Chapter 543. Old Madam didn't expect that Rui and Great Elder Princess would suddenly make things difficult for her. After being startled, she also became furious. Rui and Great Elder Princess really thought that she could ignore everything. No matter what, she was a first-class madam of Duke's mansion. What do you mean, Great Elder Princess? With her face darkening, she pounded the table and stood up. Come and catch this evil Taoist priest. The people of the Ministry of Justice happen to be here. Send him to the Ministry of Justice for interrogation. Great Elder Princess ignored old madam and said sternly. 2 guards came over to grab Taoist priest Xiushui and were about to drag him down. Taoist priest Xiushui panicked and loudly asked old madam for help. No one expected that Great Elder Princess would be so overbearing and act so rudely. Old madam trembled with anger, reached out and pointed at the door. Stop him. I want to see who dares to be so presumptuous today. A Taoist priest dares to attack him. Great Elder Princess is so domineering. Several rough female servants of Duke Xing's mansion hurriedly went forward to block the door. 2 guards pulled Taoist priest Xiushui to the door. Seeing the people blocking the door tightly, they didn't dare to do anything and looked back at Great Elder Princess. Old madam thinks so highly of an evil Taoist priest who deceives the public. Can old madam guarantee that he is innocent? Great Elder Princess sneered and squinted at old madam with great contempt. Old madam was so angry that she almost couldn't speak. She pointed at Taoist priest Xiushui tremblingly and said, Great Elder Princess, does Empress Dowager know that you are so rude and unreasonable? I am rude and unreasonable, but at least I am reasonable. Even if old madam doesn't want to make it known to Empress Dowager, I don't want to deceive Empress Dowager. You trusted an evil Taoist and even ruined your own granddaughter's future for an evil Taoist. You wholeheartedly wanted to push her into the fire pit. As a grandmother, not only are you biased, but you are also so vicious that it makes people's hair stand on end. Come, let's enter the palace now and let Empress Dowager judge. Great Elder Princess's eyes were about to burst into flames. Thinking of the true identity of the evil Taoist priest that Qing told her, she really wanted to slap the old woman of Duke Xing's mansion hard until she sobered up. A man was the Empress Dowager, but this old woman dared to give her granddaughter to him. Wasn't it ruining her granddaughter? Thinking of this, she grabbed old madam's collar and walked away. When Great Elder Princess was young, she had practiced martial arts for a period of time. She was much stronger than the weak women in the first rank. How could Madame Dowager be her opponent? She was pulled by Great Elder Princess and could not even stand straight. She staggered out. His face turned red and he was so angry that he almost fainted. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to say, Okay, let's go to the Empress Dowager now. Seeing Rui and Great Elder Princess coming over, the female servants at the door did not dare to stop her and hurriedly retreated. Their old madam was suppressed by Rui and Great Elder Princess and seemed to be at a disadvantage. If the servants were not sensible, they might even lose their lives in the end. Rui and Great Elder Princess went out first and ordered the guard, send this man to the Ministry of Justice and let them interrogate him. They must find out the background of this evil Taoist and report it to me after finding it out. Yes. The 2 guards answered and pulled Taoist priest Xiushui out. The big trouble here had already alarmed the people of the Ministry of Justice. Both Rui and Great Elder Princess and old madam of Duke Xing's mansion had unusual identities. When Shiqi had been waiting outside, seeing the 2 guards pulling a Taoist priest over, he raised his eyes to the people beside him. 2 people of the Ministry of Justice immediately went over and took over the Taoist priest. One of the guards took 2 steps forward and whispered in the ear of the member of the Ministry of Justice who took the Taoist priest. The member of the Ministry of Justice immediately widened his eyes and looked at Taoist priest Xiushui, who fell to the ground in a mess, in astonishment. The Taoist priest in front of them was a man. If it was true, it would be a big trouble. Many people knew about Taoist priest Xiushui. Because she was an Empress Dowager and was very famous, it was common for her to go in and out of the backyard of aristocratic families. If she was a man, there might be other women whose reputations had been ruined, and this matter would involve a lot of people. The member of the Ministry of Justice did not dare to hide it and hurriedly whispered in Wen Shiqi's ear. When Shiqi's eyes fell on the Taoist priest's face. From the outside, it was really hard to tell that the Taoist priest was a man. He looked like a slender woman, who was good-looking. The Taoist robe he wore was neatly buttoned up to his neck, and it was hard to see whether there was a protruding Adam's apple. At this time, he looked embarrassed, but he looked a little pitiful and more like a woman. Take him back and have him examined. When Shichi said coldly. Since great elder princess's servant said so, it must be true. It would be clear whether he was a man or not after a physical examination. There were also women in the Ministry of Justice. This time, because there were nuns in the Yuhui nunnery and even pilgrims were basically women, the Ministry of Justice also brought some women here, which happened to be useful for the physical examination. The member of the Ministry of Justice got the order and took the Taoist priest away. Taoist Shoshue still wanted to ask old madam for help, but when Shichi had impatiently asked someone to gag his mouth. On this side, Rui, and great elder princess and old madam had gone out angrily, and Rui, and great elder princess also let go of old madam's collar. After all, both of them were of high status. Just now, they fought in anger. At this time, in front of so many people outside, it was inconvenient to push them away. The two of them got into their respective carriages and went down the mountain angrily with a group of people from their mansions, ready to go to the imperial palace to ask the Empress Dowager for justice. After the two of them took the people away, it suddenly became quiet. Xiao Wanru looked at the messy room and sneered. Old madam thought that she was right, but she did not know that only the fact that Shoshue was not a woman was enough to prove that what she had said before was false. Mississippi, Yujia and Chulu came over with lingering fear on their faces, one on each side. The two servant girls were also frightened by the scene just now. No one had expected that Rui, and great elder princess would reach out and directly drag them away, but it really vented their anger. Let's go. Xiao Wanru comforted them with a smile and said softly. She was the cause of this matter, but now it seemed that she, the cause, had been forgotten. This matter could not be settled today, and she had to wait for the news from her grandmother tomorrow. Miss, old madam has gone too far. She wants to punish you without saying anything. She really doesn't treat you as her own granddaughter. Yujia came to herself at this time and stretched out her foot to kick away the razor on the ground in front of her. She wants you to become a nun and follow this evil Taoist priest. Bah! Because of anger, Yujia ignored the identity of old madam at this time and said with hatred. She doesn't treat me as her granddaughter. I'm just a stranger who doesn't like her. Since she doesn't like me, why should I? Xiao Wanru's eyes also fell on the razor on the ground. She slightly raised her pink cherry lips with a gentle but indifferent smile, as if she was talking about someone else's business. When Shichi, who was standing at the door, seemed to be struck by something in his heart. He felt a little painful, a little uncomfortable, and some indescribable emotions, which made him feel very sour. Seeing that the people of the two families had left, he thought that there was no one here, so he came in to have a look. Unexpectedly, he happened to see Xiao Wanru and heard Xiao Wanru's indifferent words, which didn't sound like a granddaughter's. At a glance, he recognized Xiao Wanru. Her childish face now had a charming look that could not be ignored. Her watery eyes were as clear as water. When she looked at people, they almost felt that there was water flowing in them. Her long eyelashes curled up and covered her bright and beautiful eyes from time to time. Her skin was as white as jade, her lips were red without any makeup, and her delicate facial features were all beautiful and charming, but also revealed a sense of coldness. She seemed to be very familiar, as if she was right in front of him, or in his dream. In the past, he might have doubted whether she was Xiao Wanru in his dream, but now Xiao Wanru confirmed the beautiful figure in his dream. The girl who accompanied him in his dream but couldn't see clearly should be Xiao Wanru. He clenched his hands hard and then loosened them. It was just a dream. Could it become real? In his dream, he was so sick and weak that he could only lie in bed. He was obviously healthy, so how could he lie in bed sick and weak? So Xiao Wanru couldn't accompany him. Fifth Miss Xiao. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, when Shichi's expression slowly softened. It was all fake. Although he didn't know why he always dreamed of Xiao Wanru before, especially when she looked like this now, it was his dream after all, and he couldn't take it seriously. Your Excellency. Xiao Wanru was stunned at first when she saw Wen Shiqi, and then she understood. Such a big thing must have happened. What happened just now? Wen Shiqi looked at the messy room, fixed his eyes on Xiao Wanru again, and asked. Your Excellency, you should have seen what happened to the bracelets, right? Xiao Wanru said with a smile, with an inexplicable indifference in her watery eyes. It has something to do with the bracelets? Wen Shiqi immediately understood. The bracelets are mine. They said that I was contaminated with evil spirits, so they found such an evil Taoist priest to break them. They said that they wanted me to shave my head and become a monk, and then sent me to this evil Taoist priest. Xiao Wanru said more and more slowly. She took a few steps to the razor, stretched out her foot to step on it, and turned to look at Wen Shiqi. Your Excellency, if you like it, you can take it as evidence. After saying that, she bowed sideways to Wen Shiqi and then walked to the door. Yujie and Chu Lu hurriedly followed her. It became quiet in the room, and only the sound of footsteps coming from outside the room was getting farther and farther away. After a moment of silence, Wen Shiqi walked to the front of the razor, squatted down, took out a snow-white handkerchief, picked up the razor, stood up to look at it, and then looked around the room calmly. After finding nothing unusual, he stepped back and handed the razor along with the handkerchief to a staff member of the Ministry of Justice. Take it away. This is the evidence. After finding out the gender, send someone to report it to Great Elder Princess's mansion immediately. Yes, I'll do it now. The staff member of the Ministry of Justice took the handkerchief and razor and left in a hurry. Wen Shiqi waved his hand, and the others all left. Only he looked back at the room again after taking a few steps, and Xiao Wanru's cold face inexplicably flashed across his mind. Chapter 544. Empress Dowager, old madam of Duke Xing colluded with an evil Taoist priest to murder my granddaughter Xiao Wanru. Please uphold justice, Empress Dowager. Ruyan Great Elder Princess cried in front of the Empress Dowager. Her tears fell down and she whimpered, my daughter had to leave because old madam was too fierce that day. She lost the baby in her belly. If she continued to live, I'm afraid that she would never have a child. The title of nobility would naturally fall to the second branch as they wished. Poor my daughter, until she died, she was crazy and silly, only thinking of. Ruyan Great Elder Princess cried as she spoke. Her hair, which had always been tightly tied up, was in a mess. The Empress Dowager was shocked. For so many years, she had never seen Ruyan Great Elder Princess in such a mess. She hurriedly stood up and helped her up, while comforting her, if you have anything to say it slowly. Don't hurt your health. You are not young, so speak properly. Old Madam of Duke Xing, who was a few steps behind Ruyan Great Elder Princess, was so angry that her whole body trembled. She just walked a few steps slower than the arrogant and domineering Great Elder Princess. Because of these few steps, she had already complained. It seemed that the Empress Dowager stood on Great Elder Princess's side without saying anything. How could old Madam bear it? She took 2 steps forward, calmed down, knelt down respectfully to the Empress Dowager, and then reached out to point at Ruyan Great Elder Princess and said, Empress Dowager, please uphold justice for me. I was dealing with things properly, but Great Elder Princess came over and dragged me out by the collar without saying anything. What about the dignity and rules of the royal family? My granddaughter is about to die. Don't talk about decency and rules. It was because of this decency and rules that the second branch of your mansion benefited. Rui and Great Elder Princess had already sat down. At this time, she turned around and shouted. The reason why my son died outside is that Infanta Qinghua killed him. Even though she is a royal infanta, she should take care of her parents-in-law after getting married and get along well with her brothers. Only she left far away regardless of anything and caused my son to die. Great Elder Princess, how should we settle this account? Old Madam wiped her tears and stared at Rui and Great Elder Princess with red eyes. The Empress Dowager's forehead was a little painful. These two people often talked about what happened in the past, but they still maintained their appearances every time. Now, they didn't even care about their faces and directly tore into each other. Come on, help old madam to sit down. She is so old. If something bad happens to her, it will be troublesome. The Empress Dowager touched her head and ordered. 2 palace maids came over and helped old madam up. Then they helped her to sit down opposite Rui and Great Elder Princess. The 2 of them were now on the left and right of the Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager, the 5th young lady, has been contaminated with evil spirits, which is seen by everyone. I asked her to shave temporarily and become a nun to pray to Buddha, but Great Elder Princess came over and pulled me over without saying anything. She said that I wanted to murder the 5th young lady and talked so much nonsense about the past. Empress Dowager, look, my collar has been torn by Great Elder Princess. Old madam pulled at her untidy clothes. Great Elder Princess had pulled her collar and walked for a while before. Although she tidied it up a little when entering the palace, it was still very disgraceful. The collar was really obvious. The Empress Dowager showed a trace of smile in her eyes. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that the collar had indeed been pulled, and this was also in line with Great Elder Princess's character. She hadn't seen Great Elder Princess so angry for many years. This anger was really surprising. As for what old madam said, the Empress Dowager's face darkened after thinking about it carefully. Wasn't the 5th young lady of Duke Xing's mansion the one who was engaged to her? Are you going to shave the 5th miss of your mansion? Whose idea is this? The Empress Dowager was unhappy. Empress Dowager, it's not a real shave, but a temporary one. She has been contaminated with evil spirits, which is not suitable for housekeeping and may harm the 6 relatives. I have no choice but to come up with this idea. Old madam wiped her tears with a handkerchief. She knew that she could no longer argue with Rui and Great Elder Princess at this time. It's only a temporary one. Do you need to shave all your hair at once? There is a razor to prove it. Let's not talk about this for the time being. My granddaughter is a good person. After you colluded with an evil Taoist and deceived the public with evil words, you planned to harm her. Why don't you harm your pampered granddaughter? Rui and Great Elder Princess wiped her tears and said aggressively. You really don't know what you are talking about. Old madam was also annoyed. The 1st young lady has nothing to do with this. Great Elder Princess, you need to be polite. Does Zhuozhua have something to do with this? You can't tolerate her. You couldn't tolerate her mother in the past, and now you can't tolerate her daughter. If you really don't like her, just give her back to me. Otherwise, she will be harmed by others to become a nun before living in your Duke Xing's mansion. Moreover, she has to have her eyes burned. If a woman's eyes burned, even if she returns to the secular life in the future, what will others think of her? Rui and Great Elder Princess scolded loudly. The Empress Dowager's face darkened. Now she basically understood everything. She put the teacup in her hand heavily on the table, making a crisp sound. Old madam, who was about to refute, was shocked and involuntarily looked at the Empress Dowager. She saw that the Empress Dowager, who had always been calm, became cold. Old madam, are you going to make the 5th miss of your mansion become a nun? The Empress Dowager said. Although her voice sounded soft, it was sharp, since he is the bloodline of Great Elder Princess, since she is the descendant of Great Elder Princess, your Duke Xing's mansion can't deal with the 5th miss at will. Does it mean that the royal bloodline is equal to other misses in your mansion? Her words were sharp, almost not like what the gentle Empress Dowager said in the past. Old madam immediately knew that the Empress Dowager was angry. She knelt down with a plop and said hurriedly, I didn't mean that. It's just that the 5th miss of Duke Xing's mansion will be possessed by the evil spirit. I have no choice but to do so. The 5th miss of Duke Xing's mansion. You mean this? Rui and Great Elder Princess sneered and waved to Nanny Gao standing aside. Nanny Gao stepped forward and presented a box. What is it? The Empress Dowager's eyes fell on the box. Although the box was presented, it was not opened. It's the longevity lock that old madam said was stained with evil spirit and attracted a lot of insects. Empress Dowager, don't be afraid. In addition to a longevity lock, there is an ant in it, which is slightly bigger than an ordinary ant. Rui, and Great Elder Princess prepared the Empress Dowager's mind for a while before she asked Nanny Gao to open it. There was indeed a longevity lock in the box. Looking carefully, there was a big ant on the lock. Because there was only one and Rui, and Great Elder Princess had explained it in advance, the Empress Dowager did not panic. She only glanced at it and then looked at old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion with a gloomy face. Empress Dowager, I asked someone to perform a ritual in the Buddha Hall. That night, the Buddha Hall was burned down by thunder and lightning. Today, I went up the mountain and asked someone to dig out several pairs of silver bracelets of the brother and sister. After digging out the bracelets, only the silver bracelets of the fifth girl were covered with these disgusting ants, which were bigger than ordinary ants. The first girl and the fifth girl went to ask Puming Nun of the Yuhui Nunnery. Puming Nun said that she would ask Taoist priest Shushui of the Baiyun Taoist temple for this matter. With Puming Nun's message, I went to ask Taoist priest Shushui. Taoist priest Shoshui was afraid that there would be a mistake, so she wanted to find another piece of jewelry of the fifth girl. I thought of the longevity lock that was given to the fifth girl before, so I asked someone to ask the fifth girl for it. The fifth girl said that it was in Great Elder Princess's mansion, so I asked the servants in the mansion to get it together. Unexpectedly, when they got it, it was covered with ants again. Empress Dowager, what should I do? I don't want to do that, but the lives of all the people in the mansion. Old Madam cried loudly and knelt on the ground. While crying, she told the cause and effect of the matter, including the matter that Great Elder Princess grabbed her collar rudely. Empress Dowager, don't listen to her nonsense. She said that there is evil qi on it. You can ask the imperial physician to check it. There is no other evil qi on it at all. It must have been smeared with honey, and it is the most fragrant osmanthus honey. If it doesn't attract ants, how can it attract ants? After old Madam finished speaking, Rui, and Great Elder Princess sneered and said. She reached out to take the box in Nanny Gao's hand, closed it, and gave it to the palace servant beside the Empress Dowager. What? It was smeared with honey. The Empress Dowager's face turned cold. Her gentleness did not mean that she was really kind. Since she could sit in the position of the top person in the harem in this palace, how could she be simple? Come on, ask the imperial physician to check it. The palace servant left with the box. What? There is honey. Old Madam stammered and raised her head. Her face was pale with shock. Old Madam, don't you know? Rui, and Great Elder Princess raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically. How could I know that the longevity lock is in your hands? Old Madam argued angrily. Who knows? Even the bracelets buried under the main hall can be smeared with honey. What else can't they do? Rui, and Great Elder Princess sneered and stared at old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion with burning eyes. She did not believe that this old woman really knew nothing about it. Thinking that she used to pretend to be a decent person in front of her, but wanted to push her granddaughter to the worst situation, Rui, and Great Elder Princess even wanted to eat her alive. How could I know? It was reported to me by the servants, and then it was Taoist priest Shoshui who told me. Old Madam stammered and slowly became fluent. Old Madam, please get up. The Empress Dowager ordered in a cold voice, and the palace servant hurriedly helped her up. Old Madam sat down and squeezed the handkerchief in her hand tightly. Her face was very pale, and she tightly pursed her lips. Looking at the door of the main hall, her eyes narrowed. The palace servant holding the box in the main hall had come back. The Empress Dowager had grown up, and there had been imperial physicians on duty in her side hall all the time, so she could check it without going to the Imperial Institute of Medicine. Chapter 545. The Empress Dowager turned to look at old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion and asked coldly, why? I don't know. Old Madam's lips trembled a few times, and she only felt that her hands and feet were cold. If you don't know, you dare to ruin the future of the royal bloodline and make the fifth miss shave her head and become a nun in private? The Empress Dowager said sternly. In the past, she had always been kind to some old madams and old madams in the mansion, but this time she couldn't bear it anymore. She agreed to marry Xiao Wanru to her son, so she couldn't let old madam of Duke Xing's mansion bully her like this. A palace maid hurried in and whispered to Rui, and great elder princess. Rui, and great elder princess stood up with a livid face, knelt in front of the Empress Dowager, and said, "Your Highness, please help Zhuozhuo." Not only was her bracelet smeared with honey, but she was also sent to a fake Taoist nun. She is going to ruin her. After saying that, she kowtowed to the Empress Dowager and stared at old madam with unkind eyes. "Tell me why you sent Zhuozhuo to a fake Taoist nun. You said that she shaves her head and becomes a nun. It is obvious that you sent her to a den of prostitution. As a grandmother, how can you be so cruel?" What? Old madam widened her eyes in shock, and her legs went soft. She fell from the chair and knelt down. "Don't you know what you have done? At this time, you play the same trick again and pretend that you don't know anything." Rui, and great elder princess sneered. Hearing Rui, and great elder princess's looming voice, old madam grabbed in the air a few times, as if she wanted to grab something to support her body. Then she blacked out, and then fainted. The official notice asking the Ministry of Justice to investigate the matter of the Baiyun Taoist temple arrived the next day, and the person in charge was Wen Shiqi. This kind of matter was related to many rich and powerful families. Letting a man in the backyard of the Baiyun Taoist temple made some people feel ashamed. After receiving the transfer order, Wen Shiqi hurriedly went down the mountain to deal with the matter of the Baiyun Taoist temple. He happened to take over this matter at that time, so he was in charge for the time being. Before the matter was investigated clearly, it was better for fewer people to know it. No one knew which family might be involved. But no matter which family was involved, nothing good would come out of it. After Wen Shiqi went down the mountain, the Ministry of Justice sent a new chief official over. But this time, he didn't forcibly guard the Yuhui nunnery. Instead, he transferred all the staff of the Ministry of Justice away. If the pilgrims who stayed here wanted to leave, they could also leave. When most of the pilgrims heard that they could leave, they packed up their luggage and hurried down the mountain. Hearing that they could leave, old madam of Duke Xing, Yan in the Empress Dowager's mansion Taoist Yan Dowager. Xiao Wanru originally wanted to stay, but Xiao Yanru was urged to go down the mountain by a letter from old madam, saying that old madam was seriously ill and asked Xiao Yanru to go down the mountain to serve her. After thinking for a while, Xiao Wanru went down the mountain to visit old madam with Xiao Yanru. She got the news from great elder princess that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion had not woken up since she fainted in the Empress Dowager's palace that night. Xing Yan Dao and Shi. Since old Hua was seriously ill, Xiao Wanru, as her granddaughter, had to go to see her. Observing mourning for her parents and visiting her grandmother were both filial piety. If Xiao Wanru didn't go, it would inevitably cause controversy. Old madam of Duke Xing's mansion was ill after she fainted in Empress Dowager King's palace. It was said that Empress Dowager King had sent someone to visit her. But it was said that the person who visited her didn't reward old madam of Duke Xing's mansion with anything. They went there empty-handed and came back empty-handed. Another rumor said that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion framed the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion, saying that she smeared honey on her jewelry and was possessed by evil spirits. She wanted the fifth miss to become a nun. The emperor was furious because of this in the palace and found an excuse to beat Duke Xing recently. Duke Xing was also recuperating in the mansion. All kinds of news about Duke Xing's mansion came out one after another. It was not certain whether the first one was true or not, but it was absolutely true that Duke Xing had been beaten. Now he couldn't even attend the court meeting and was indeed recuperating at home. This happened the second day after old madam fainted in the palace. Many aristocratic families were rumored that Duke Xing's mansion had lost the emperor's favor and even Duke Xing had been beaten. It seemed that Duke Xing's mansion was getting worse year by year. Xiao Yanru and Xiao Wanru didn't sit in the same carriage. They each had their own carriage and went down the mountain together. In the carriage, Xiao Yanru's face was as gloomy as water. She stared at a certain part of the curtain with a gloomy face, feeling angry and depressed. What did her grandmother do? She not only failed to take down Xiao Wanru, but also implicated her father, causing him to be punished by the emperor and beaten. It was said that there were fewer people coming and going in the mansion recently. It must be that other families felt that Duke Xing's mansion had lost the emperor's favor and dared not come here. It was supposed to be a sure thing, but it ended up in such a situation. Although she was not directly implicated, it was obvious that she had been affected. If her father really lost the emperor's favor because of this, it would not do her any good and might even affect her marriage. As long as she thought of this, she would be in a bad mood. What did Puming Nun say? Suddenly, she thought of something and asked. When she went down the mountain just now, Puming Nun's disciple came over in a hurry. Because she had already got in the carriage, she asked Shuqi to negotiate with her. Puming Nun returned this to Miss. Shuqi took out a purse from her bosom and handed it over. She returned the banknote. Xiao Yanru glanced at the purse and said with a snort. This was the reward for asking Puming Nun to mention Taoist Nun Xiushui of the Baiyun Taoist Temple. Yes, yes. Puming Nun said that she didn't know anything and only mentioned it occasionally. She had met Taoist Nun Xiushui of the Baiyun Taoist Temple before and talked with her a few times. She thought that she was a good Taoist, but now she found that she had been deceived. Shuqi lowered her head and said. Damn bald donkey, you're timid when something happens. Xiao Yanru said with a sneer. Fortunately, Puming Nun was not stupid, and it was true that she knew Taoist priest Xiushui. It was said that they got to know each other when they went to the foot of the mountain to perform religious rites. After some rich families died, they would invite some monks and Taoist priests to come over. There were monks and Taoist priests among them. After performing a few religious rites together, they could be regarded as acquaintances. In this way, they could not find anything. As for the acquaintance of Puming Nun and Taoist priest Xiushui, it was Pushun Nun who mentioned it to Xiao Yanru. First Miss, what should we do now? Shuqi asked uneasily. Just put it away. She can't say anything bad about it. This is my gift to her, and I gave it to her in the name of my grandma. Xiao Yanru said disdainfully. Puming Nun didn't seem to be stupid. If this matter was exposed, it would be difficult for her to get out of it. At this moment, she only said that she knew Taoist priest Xiushui and introduced him based on her feelings. Even if something happened, she couldn't be blamed. No one in the capital city had seen through Taoist priest Xiushui. After we go down the mountain, ask Xiao Wanru to go to Great Elder Princess's mansion first. Xiao Yanru gave an order. She still owed an explanation for the matter of the Baiyun Taoist temple. If she explained it late, it would hurt their relationship. This matter was much more important than old Madame's illness, so she had to give an explanation first. Of course, she couldn't let Xiao Wanru know about it, so she had to send her away. First Miss, what should I do? Shuqi asked uneasily. Xiao Yanru lowered her head and thought for a while. Then she raised the corner of her mouth coldly and said, after we go down the mountain, let the carriage stop by the roadside and rest. Yes, miss. Shuqi put away the purse, pulled up the curtain of the carriage, and gave an order to the coachman outside. All the way down the mountain, Xiao Yanru's carriage stopped first, and then Xiao Wanru's carriage, which followed it, also stopped. After the carriage stopped, Xiao Yanru got into her carriage with the help of Shuqi and said, go and ask the fifth miss to come down and have a rest. Shuqi walked to the front of the carriage behind and said to Xiao Wanru, who was in the carriage, fifth miss, the first miss asks you to come out and have a rest. You must be tired all the way. In the carriage, Yujia looked at Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru opened her eyes slightly and nodded silently. Yujia picked up the curtain hat at hand, put it on for Xiao Wanru, and then helped her get out of the carriage. Xiao Yanru had been waiting by the roadside. Seeing Xiao Wanru come down with the curtain hat on, she smiled and waved to her. There was a shade of trees over there. Xiao Wanru walked over. Fifth sister, we just need to have a rest for a while. You don't need to wear the curtain hat. Xiao Yanru said with a kind smile. Xiao Wanru looked at her face through the veil and found that she was really kind and seemed to be in a good mood. It was really amazing that she could be in a good mood at this time. I took it off and put it on, Xiao Wanru said with a smile and said lightly. Fifth sister, go to Great Elder Princess's mansion to greet her when you go down the mountain later. Xiao Yanru said softly with the smile on her face fading and seeming to be a little embarrassed. My mother sent someone to send the news about what happened before. No one expected that. The Taoist priest of the Baiyun Taoist temple was. Xiao Yanru couldn't go on for a moment and lowered her head. As an unmarried girl, she really couldn't go on talking about this kind of thing. Thinking about the dirty things in it, she felt that even if she talked about it, it would be extremely dirty. Big sister, who do you think put honey on my bracelets and longevity lock? Xiao Wanru didn't hide that she already knew about it. I remember that these two things were sent from the mansion, and I have never worn them. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was done by a servant. I believe that grandma will definitely give you an explanation. Even if you are not raised by grandma, you are still a blood relative, so she won't let you suffer any loss. But grandma feels that she owes Great Elder Princess a lot. You should go to greet Great Elder Princess first. She meant that Xiao Wanru should go to Great Elder Princess's mansion to deal with it. Okay, I'll go to see grandma first. I hope you can explain more about grandma, lest grandma reprimands me again. Xiao Wanru said meaningfully. Of course, of course. Xiao Yanru nodded repeatedly. Chapter 546. Your Highness, Fifth Miss is in the last carriage. It seems that she is not going to Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Liuzi climbed into the carriage and said excitedly, but he knew that he was afraid of being heard, so he deliberately lowered his voice. It sounded like a chicken being strangled, which was very strange. However, Chu Liuxin was used to it and did not find it strange. They had been waiting at this crossroads for 2 days, but they did not see the carriage of Duke Xing's mansion. Now, not only did they see it, but they also found the carriage of Fifth Miss Xiao behind it. Our luck isn't bad. Keep up. Chu Liuxin nodded proudly. Fortunately, he was smart enough to know that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion was ill. Xiao Wanru, who was on the mountain, would definitely not be able to sit still and would definitely go down the mountain to visit her. The effect of waiting for a hare by a stump was also very good. Look, he found her after only waiting for 2 days. The most important thing was that he not only found Xiao Wanru but also found out which car was Xiao Wanru. He was so lucky to encounter such a coincidence. The carriage turned out from another road at the crossroads, stared at the carriage of Duke Xing's mansion moving forward, and then closely followed Xiao Wanru's carriage. Miss, the carriage behind us seems to be following us. Yujia pointed at the gauze curtain at the back window and said to Xiao Wanru. She had looked at it several times just now and had turned several intersections while following it. Maybe he's also going to Beijing. Xiao Wanru said. The gate of the capital city was not here yet. It was possible that those who came down from the Yuhui nunnery happened to be behind her. Miss, this carriage wasn't there when we went down the mountain. Look at how gorgeous this carriage is. It's obviously not from an ordinary family. If this servant had seen it just now, I would have recognized it. Yujia didn't think so and reminded Xiao Wanru. Let's take a look at the city gate first. Xiao Wanru turned her head and looked at the carriage outside the back window through the screen window. It was neither too fast nor too slow. When her carriage slowed down, it did not overtake the other carriage, as if it had fallen behind her carriage. Xiao Wanru's face involuntarily darkened, and her watery eyes were thoughtful. This carriage was indeed very suspicious, but he didn't know if he was overthinking it or if that was the original intention. Since they hadn't arrived in the capital city yet, she couldn't tell for now, so she could only wait quietly. She said those words to Yujia just now because she was afraid that she would panic and mess up. All the way to the gate of the capital city, there were many people entering the city today. Many people were waiting in line, and they were all ordinary civilians. As an aristocratic family, Duke Xing's mansion certainly didn't have to wait in line. Following Xiao Yanru's carriage forward, she saw Shuqi say something to the soldier guarding the gate, point to the carriage behind her, and then take out an invitation card from her bosom. After reading it, the soldier immediately let them through. The two carriages entered the city gate one after the other. Yujia and the carriage Yujia, and two carriages entered the city gate one after the carriage. Yujia had been paying attention to the situation behind. When she saw a servant come out of the carriage, he also said a few words to the soldier. This time, he didn't even take out the name card. The soldier immediately let him go respectfully, and he was even more respectful to the carriage of Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru frowned. The owner of the carriage behind her had an unusual identity, but she didn't know what he wanted. Was it because of Xiao Yanru or her, or was it really a coincidence? Xiao Yanru's carriage went in the direction of Duke Xing's mansion at the intersection, while Xiao Wanru's carriage went in another direction. The two carriages separated. Xiao Yanru didn't notice the carriage behind Xiao Wanru. She focused on Xiao Wanru. Seeing that Xiao Wanru didn't follow her, she breathed a sigh of relief. When they arrived at the next intersection, she immediately ordered the carriage to turn in another direction instead of Duke Xing's mansion. After several turns, Shuqi kept staring at the back, for fear that Xiao Wanru's carriage would appear at any time. After staying on the mountain for a period of time, Shuqi didn't dare to underestimate the young 5th Mississippi. Fortunately, Xiao Wanru's carriage didn't appear. Seeing Xiao Wanru's carriage, Shuqi breathed a sigh of relief. Although the 5th Miss was not simple, she was much worse than her master. Except for the fact that her master had set up the affair between the 5th Miss and the first young master of the Qi family, which was a little harmful to her master, the first Miss had handled other affairs with ease and wouldn't let others have any evidence against her. For example, the first Miss had added fuel to the fire in the affair between Old Madam, but no one could find out that it was the first Mississippi. The carriage stopped at the back door of a restaurant. Xiao Yanru put on her curtain hat, helped Shuqi get out of the carriage, and gently knocked on the back door of the restaurant. Someone immediately came to open the door. Seeing Xiao Yanru come in, he hurriedly led her in. After that, he looked around and found that no one was coming, so he hurriedly closed the door. The waiter led Xiao Yanru to the second floor from a dark escalator at the back, and then to the third floor. Then he stopped at the entrance of the escalator on the third floor and said, "First Miss, our master is waiting for you inside." Xiao Yanru nodded and glanced at Shuqi. Shuqi understood her meaning and stopped. She watched Xiao Yanru enter a room upstairs, and the door of the room was closed silently. The room was not big, but it was elegantly decorated, and even the furnishings looked extremely elegant. Chu Luyue was standing on the table in front of the window, painting quietly with a brush in his hand. Xiao Yanru took 2 steps forward, walked to his handsome back, bowed deeply to him, and said, "Your Highness. You're here. What do you think of my peony?" Chu Luyue said without looking back. Xiao Yanru took 2 steps forward and walked to Chu Luyue's side. Looking at his painting of peonies, she frowned secretly. She didn't like peonies. She always felt that peonies were too colorful in the past and were not an ideal kind of flower. She also liked Tang Qianyan, which was fresh and refined with a kind of otherworldly beauty, just as others had always praised her. But it was Prince Yu in front of her. Of course, she couldn't let him know this kind of preference. "Your Highness, your painting is really good. The peony seems to be alive. It's so beautiful that even my heart is moved. Your Highness, can you give me this peony painting so that I can look at it every day? Even if I can't see you, I can miss you," Xiao Yanru said softly. At this moment, the dignified look on her face was gone, and she looked just like a delicate miss in love. Looking at Chu Luyue's handsome face, she smiled sweetly. Her words were explicit, and then her face blushed, which made her look more attractive. "Okay, I'll give it to you after I finish painting it." Chu Luyue laughed and seemed to be in a good mood. Xiao Yenru breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. It seemed that it was not that bad. Thank you, Your Highness. Xiao Yenru bowed sideways and said softly with a smile. She was dressed in a pink dress with a pair of butterflies embroidered on the edge of the delicate light green dress, which looked both smart and beautiful. Her eyes seemed to be full of limpid autumn water, and she looked at Chu Luiyue with great affection. Even though she didn't say anything, she was already attractive. Such a beauty was dignified and decent outside, and when they met, she was such a beautiful scene. For a man, she was definitely a rare legal wife. Moreover, the title of the first beauty in the capital city and the kingdom of Dongzang was enough to make a man fall in love with her. Only such a beauty was the best match for him if he got the country. Of course, it would be better if Xiao Yenru's color was darker, like the flower king peony. Chu Luiyue thought with regret, but he also thought that no one was perfect. It didn't matter if she had such a shortcoming. Anyway, she was already the first beauty. If he married her, he would not only have a background but also a beauty, which would be a good story. However, even if she was a beauty, he still had to rebuke her when it was necessary. Otherwise, she would be spoiled. The smile on his face slowly faded. He turned to look at Xiao Yenru and said, "Tell me what happened in the Baiyun Taoist temple." Your Highness, I really didn't expect that there would be such a big problem. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Xiao Yenru said with a weak face. She knelt down, and tears immediately welled up in her eyes. She held her slender waist, knelt down, and slightly lowered her head, which made her waist look more slender and attractive. Chu Luiyue put down the writing brush in his hand, sat down in the chair, looked at Xiao Yenru coldly with a little anger, and said, "I told you before that you shouldn't disclose this matter, but you didn't listen to me and asked someone to destroy the Baiyun Taoist temple." Your Highness, it was really an accident. When Grandma asked who could exorcise evil spirits, I mentioned a few people. Taoist priest Xiushui has always been famous. If I didn't mention him, it would seem that I had a guilty conscience. So I just mentioned him among a few people. Unexpectedly, Grandma still chose him. With tears welling up in her eyes, Xiao Yenru looked at Chu Luiyue in horror with a sad and regretful look on her face. Tears fell down one by one, looking very pitiful. Didn't you specially recommend him? Chu Luiyue said with a frown. Of course not. Even if I'm ignorant, I won't ruin your plan, Your Highness. If you are in trouble, what good will it do to me? Xiao Yenru's sad voice and careful look made Chu Luiyue's face soften a little. He reached out to pull Xiao Yenru, but Xiao Yenru avoided him carefully and said with a red face, Your Highness, a gentleman doesn't bully a dark room. Even if there is no one at this time, you shouldn't be rude. After saying that, she stood up with the help of the chair beside her. Although her eyes were full of affection, her behavior was not frivolous at all, and she looked like a lady from a noble family. Well, I won't touch you. When I marry you in the future, you won't refuse me, will you? Chu Luiyue said with a smile. At this point, he still liked Xiao Yenru very much and thought that she was a girl with self-respect. Even if they were in love with each other now, she would not cross the line. Duke Xing's mansion had a good education. No wonder she had such a good reputation. It turned out that she deserved it. Thinking that this flower-like beauty would eventually fall into his hands, Chu Luiyue felt a little hot in his heart. After a period of time, you can attend the consort selection. This time, you can attend it. I will choose you as my princess. Your Highness, even if I attend the consort selection, we can't be together. The emperor won't allow you to marry me. Xiao Yenru covered her face and cried. In the past, the princess of the princes usually didn't marry a girl with a strong family background. For example, according to the rank of Duke Xing's mansion and the degree to which Duke Xing was valued, the miss of Duke Xing's mansion didn't seem to be able to stay. Chapter 547. Let's not talk about it for the time being. Let's see the situation first. If I can't choose you, let's talk about it later. Chu Luiyue said with a gloomy face. He felt really uncomfortable that he couldn't marry the girl he liked. Yes, Your Highness. I'll listen to you. Then I'll refuse to marry you. Only you can marry me. Xiao Yanru said in a sweet voice and lowered her head with a blush. It was really not a shameful thing to talk about her marriage with a man. Xiao Yanru's expression and behavior were just right, and she had a good sense of propriety, which was also what she had practiced thousands of times in front of herself in the mirror. I'm sorry. Don't worry. When I ascend to the throne, the first thing I'll do is to take you into the palace and command the 6 palaces. You're the girl I want to marry most. Chu Liuyue's heart softened more and more. If Xiao Yanru didn't get married, it didn't mean that she just wanted to wait. Xiao Yanru was not young. At her age, she had basically been engaged. Your Highness. Xiao Yanru looked at Chu Liyue with an excited face and reached out to pull Chu Liyue's sleeve uncontrollably. It seemed that she was moved, but she just pulled his sleeve and then hurriedly took a few steps back to the door. She said affectionately, Your Highness, I'll go first. I'll wait for you to marry me. I will. Don't worry. Chu Liyue comforted her in a soft voice. She was as beautiful as jade and a little fragile. He really wanted to marry her and dote on her, but his father and grandmother might not allow it. He had already prepared for the worst. If they really didn't allow it, he could wait until he ascended to the throne and then choose her to marry into the palace. At that time, no one could stop him. Of course, the first beauty should be worthy of him. Your Highness, I'll never forget your kindness. Xiao Yanru knew that it was about time. She looked at Chu Liyue in a soft voice and said with tears. Then she gritted her teeth, turned to open the door, looked back at him reluctantly at the door, and hurried downstairs. Chu Liyue was in a better mood. Any man would be very happy to make such a great beauty so attached to him. He stood up, picked up the brush again, and carefully drew the peony under his hand. Xiao Wanru didn't know what Xiao Yanru was going to do, but she guessed that Xiao Yanru was also going to see someone and was afraid that she would find something, so she sent her away. She did want to go to her grandma's place to inquire about something. Although her grandma had sent someone to deliver the news before, it was always vague. Miss, the carriage is still following us. She closed her eyes to rest. Yu Jie said angrily, he's been following us all the way. When we turn, he turns. When we slow down, he slows down. Let's see if he will follow us to Grandma's mansion. Xiao Wanru said unhurriedly. She was sure that there was a noble in the carriage, and he was eyeing her. Although she didn't know what his purpose was, since he was a noble, and he was not the kind that could not be seen in public, she believed that he would enter the great elder princess mansion in a while. At that time, she would know who he was. The carriage went all the way and turned to the gate of great elder princess's mansion. Someone had come to ask and knew that it was the 5th Miss of Duke Xing's mansion, so he hurriedly asked her to drive the carriage in from the side door. After entering the gate and making a few turns, they finally arrived at the parking place of Rui and great elder princess mansion. Yu Jie got out of the carriage first. After looking around and seeing that no carriage was following them, she finally breathed a sigh of relief and reached out to help Xiao Wanru get out of the carriage. The coachman stood aside. Xiao Wanru got out of the carriage and looked at the coachman standing aside respectfully. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth and said with a trace of coldness, "Feed the carriage later. Remember, this is Great Elder Princess Mansion. Don't be careless or wander around at will. If something happens, no one can save you." "Yes, 5th Miss, I know." The coachman nodded repeatedly and said vigorously. After giving the order, Xiao Wanru followed an old maid leading the way with Yu Jie. Yu Jie suddenly stopped and looked back. Seeing the coachman's unruly look, she frowned. Since Qing went down the mountain and was delayed by the coachman, the people around Xiao Wanru knew that the coachman was unreliable and should be from Duke Xing's mansion. They had to get rid of him. "Miss, the coachman." Yu Jie took 2 steps forward and wanted to remind Xiao Wanru. Now they were in Great Elder Princess Mansion, so it was a good opportunity. don't say more. Let's go. Xiao Wanru shook her head calmly and motioned for her to stop talking. They walked all the way to the courtyard where Great Elder Princess lived. As soon as they entered the door, they saw Great Elder Princess sitting in a chair with her chin slightly raised, looking very imposing. However, after Xiao Wanru bowed to her, she immediately grabbed her hand, hugged her tightly in her arms, and burst into tears. "Zhuozhuo, my poor Zhuozhuo." Thinking that her granddaughter almost had an accident, Great Elder Princess was angry and resentful. The old lady of Duke Xing's mansion thought that she would be fine after pretending to faint, but she would not let her get away with it anyway. After coming out of the Empress Dowager's palace, she specially went to see the emperor. Others might not know that her granddaughter and Prince Chen were secretly engaged, but the emperor knew. As expected, the emperor was also furious after hearing her words. The next day, the news that Duke Xing had been beaten came out. Rui, and Great Elder Princess, was very happy. Since she couldn't beat the old maid who had fainted, she could beat her son and see if the old maid dared to reach out to her. "Grandma, I'm fine. I'm fine." Xiao Wanru reached out and gently patted Rui, and Great Elder Princess's thin shoulder, and said softly. Great Elder Princess had always been tough outside, but when facing Xiao Wanru, she could feel her softness every time. This made Xiao Wanru feel very warm in her heart. Even if she didn't have the so-called relatives of Duke Xing's mansion, she still had real relatives. "Great Elder Princess, Fifth Miss is fine. You should be happy. Why are you crying again?" Nanny Gao also tried to persuade her and reached out to help Great Elder Princess. The word "again" in her words made Great Elder Princess unable to help but scold her with a smile. "You old thing, you are talking nonsense again. Great Elder Princess, you really wronged me." "I didn't talk nonsense." It's obvious that Great Elder Princess has been sad when thinking about Fifth Miss these days. Nanny Gao said exaggeratedly, while helping Great Elder Princess sit down. "Grandma." Xiao Wanru's hand was still in Great Elder Princess's, and her heart was as warm as being soaked in warm water. "You are talking nonsense. If you talk nonsense again, I will beat you." Great Elder Princess blushed, reached out to push Nanny Gao away, and deliberately scared her by showing her weakness during this period in front of the younger generation. Yes, I dare not talk nonsense again." Nanny Gao had been Great Elder Princess's servant for many years, so she knew that she was strong in appearance but weak in reality. She immediately said with a smile and invited Xiao Wanru to sit down. "Where is Hao?" Xiao Wanru looked around and didn't find Xiao Yuanhao, so she couldn't help asking. "He is having a class in the study. I'll send someone to call him here." Great Elder Princess looked Xiao Wanru up and down and said with relief when she found that there was nothing unusual about her. Xiao Wanru hurriedly reached out to stop her and said, "Grandma, since Hao is learning, don't disturb him. I will sit for a while and leave." "Why are you in such a hurry?" Rui, and Great Elder Princess said unhappily, "Your grandmother won't die. I heard from Empress Dowager's servants that although she is not in good spirits, she will be fine for the time being. Since I came down the mountain to see her, I have to go to see her, in case she makes any trouble." Xiao Wanru said with a smile. "Zhuozhuo, I won't stop you from going there, and I can't stop you. This old woman is desperate now. If I really stop you, there may be an accident. But there is one thing I want to make clear to you. It is obviously related to her. Since she is not kind, do you still want to stay in Duke Xing's mansion? Why don't you go to Great Elder Princess's mansion with Hao?" Rui, and Great Elder Princess said and then told Xiao Wanru in detail what had happened in the imperial palace. After that, she asked, "Zhuozhuo, do you still want to go back to Duke Xing's mansion in such a situation? Why don't you take this opportunity to put pressure on Duke Xing's mansion and ask you to come here for a period of time?" According to Great Elder Princess's intention, since Xiao Wanru could come here for a period of time, she could certainly ask for a longer period of time. After Xiao Wanru went down the mountain, she could live in Great Elder Princess's mansion first. After Prince Chen announced the marriage, she could prepare for the marriage. During this period, she could also force Xiao Wanru to stay in Great Elder Princess's mansion. After all, Duke Xing's mansion seemed to be very unkind to Xiao Wanru. This incident could be used as a handle. Even if her granddaughter had to marry out of Duke Xing's mansion in the end, she would only stay there for a few days after she got married. She would stay in Great Elder Princess's mansion for the rest of the time. Grandma, I want to live in Duke Xing's mansion. I will take back what they owe me, father and mother. Xiao Wanru shook her head, looked at Rui and Great Elder Princess firmly and said. Ling Li said these words, with a pair of beautiful eyes with a bit of a deep coldness that couldn't be suppressed, and the bottom of her eyes was malicious. She hadn't collected the debt from Duke Xing's mansion yet, so she would never let Duke Xing's mansion go. Hearing her words, Great Elder Princess's face also darkened. She could protect herself by leaving, but could she really leave her daughter and son-in-law alone? The title belongs to Hao, and no one can take it away. Seeing that Rui and Great Elder Princess was still hesitating, Xiao Wanru immediately added, it was taken away by others, and now we must get it back. Only in this way can we comfort our parents in the netherworld. In fact, what was more important was the blood feud. In the last life, they had secretly killed her and all her relatives. How could they let go of such a deep blood feud so easily? But she couldn't tell her grandma about it. Since you have made up your mind on this matter, I will definitely help you. Rui and Great Elder Princess's eyes also turned red. Thinking of her daughter and son-in-law, she couldn't hide the sadness in her heart. She gritted her teeth and said with hatred. All this was caused by the old woman of Duke Xing's mansion, but there might be other inside stories. Although she had a high status, she couldn't meddle in the affairs of other mansions. Even if she felt that there was something wrong, she couldn't investigate the affairs of Duke Xing's mansion. Now her granddaughter was indeed a suitable candidate, but she was afraid that the people of Duke Xing's mansion were too vicious and killed her granddaughter in the end. Grandma, rest assured. I will be fine. Xiao Wanru knew what Great Elder Princess was worried about, so she shook her hand and said coquettishly. Looking at her granddaughter in front of her, Great Elder Princess's heart softened. She nodded and agreed. Chapter 548. Okay, what kind of furniture do you like, Zhuozhuo? I can make it for you. Rui and Great Elder Princess was so happy that her granddaughter was so close to her, so she nodded repeatedly. I like everything Grandma cooks. Xiao Wanru said with a smile and reached out to shake Great Elder Princess's hand. The smile in her watery eyes slowly faded away. Duke Xing's mansion definitely hasn't prepared a courtyard for me. Even if they have prepared one, it won't be a good one. Grandma, take this opportunity to ask them to prepare a good courtyard for me. The better the courtyard was, the more distressed Madame of Duke Xing would be. She had already burned a good courtyard. If she took over another one, Madame of Duke Xing would be distressed to death. She wanted to make them distressed. The more distressed she was, the better. After all, she was a junior and had no right to choose a courtyard. But her grandma was different. With her status and what had happened this time, she didn't believe that Duke Xing's mansion wouldn't prepare a good courtyard for her. It was almost time to go down the mountain. She didn't want to choose a courtyard to live in at that time. Since Duke Xing's mansion had taken her in, she must give them the best. When she left, she was very reluctant. When she returned, she must let all the people of Duke Xing's mansion see that she did not come back dejectedly. A good courtyard was very important to her status in Duke Xing's mansion in the future. She first asked for a good courtyard for herself and then asked for one for Howard. Even if he lived in Great Elder Princess's mansion now, Duke Xing's mansion had to prepare another courtyard for him. The original courtyard was not good and was only suitable for unenlightened children. Now that Howard had been enlightened and learned, he naturally could not live like when he was young. Of course, the best was the courtyard where his father and mother lived. That courtyard had always been the residence of the heir of Duke Xing's mansion. Living in this courtyard almost meant that the whole mansion had recognized him as the heir. She would trample on Duke Xing's mansion step by step to get back what they owed them in the last life. Ruyan Great Elder Princess immediately understood what she meant. She reached out to touch her forehead and scolded with a smile, "Little monkey, well, I'll let you take advantage of the previous courtyard today. I heard that this courtyard is even better than the original one. Duke Xing's mansion hasn't given up on making this courtyard their first young master's bridal chamber. Has the courtyard been built again?" Xiao Wanru blinked her watery eyes and said, "It's been built. I heard that everything inside is better than before. That young master's marriage is being discussed now. It should be done soon. If he succeeds, he will get married soon. This courtyard is not bad." Ruyan Great Elder Princess sneered. Although the old woman was sick and weak and could not be forced, the rest of the people in Duke Xing's mansion should be healthy. "Then I'll take this courtyard. Grandma has sent someone to measure it and send a set of furniture over." Xiao Wanru nodded. With a set of furniture from Great Elder Princess, even if she had not returned to the mansion, the courtyard would be hers. Originally, Duke Xing's mansion might find other reasons to shirk the responsibility. But after what happened this time, they would like to see what reason they had to reject Grandma's power. Old Madam couldn't show up in her current condition, so only Madam of Duke Xing could show up. She was looking forward to Madam of Duke Xing being so angry that she wanted to vomit blood, but had to give up the courtyard. "Okay, grandmother will ask Gao Nanny to go there in a while. Can I borrow a reliable coachman from grandmother? The one I used to be seems to be someone else's man." Xiao Wanru said again. She had thought that he was just an ordinary coachman, but since he could be bought and sold by others, she didn't need to rely on him. "The coachman is outside now. Grandma will send someone to detain him. Nanny Gao, find a reliable person and replace the previous coachman." Hearing that the coachman around her granddaughter might be sent by Duke Xing's mansion, Great Elder Princess immediately became angry. Although the coachman was not a servant girl, he was often needed when going out. If he was someone else's man, it would be easy for him to get into trouble. "I'll go there right away." Nanny Gao knew that she couldn't neglect it, so she hurriedly went out to find a servant girl and asked her to send a coachman to the parking lot. She taught the servant girl how to do it in a low voice. The servant girl nodded repeatedly and turned to leave. "Great Elder Princess, Prince Xan asks to see you." An old maid hurriedly came in and reported. "Prince Xan?" Great Elder Princess frowned. These princes rarely came to her place. Now they suddenly came here and she didn't know if something had happened. "Let him in." "Yes." The old maid went away. After a while, she led Chu Liuxin in. When Chu Liuxin, who was smiling, saw that Xiao Wanru was here, the smile on his face became wider. He took 2 steps forward and bowed to Great Elder Princess respectfully. "Great Aunt." Great Elder Princess invited him to sit down. Xiao Wanru came over to greet him and then also sat down. The servants served tea. "Why do you have time to come to see me today?" Great Elder Princess looked at Chu Liuxin with a smile and said. "I passed by here, so I came to have a look. I didn't expect cousin Wanru to be here." "I'm sorry," Chu Liuxin said with a smile. In the past 2 years, he had also grown up very quickly. He had gotten rid of the image of an unrestrained young man and looked quite elegant. The princes and princes of the royal family were all good-looking and extraordinarily handsome. Chu Liuxin was no longer as mischievous as he was when he was a child. He looked quite like a prince. His behavior was not so impatient. "I saw a paper phoenix on the street before. Thinking that the paper phoenix is going to be released soon, I specially bought one for cousin Hao." Chu Liuxin said with a smile and clapped his hands. Eunuch Liuzi hurriedly took a paper phoenix with 100 bamboo centipede from the servant's hand. The drawing was vivid and exquisite. At first glance, one could tell that it was not ordinary. Xiao Wanru glanced at Chu Liuxin calmly and did not understand what he meant. It should be Chu Liuxin who followed her all the way here. Only with his identity did he not need to show his name card to enter the mansion. Why did he follow her? And why did he follow her all the way just to send a paper phoenix to her brother? Then I have to ask how, to thank your cousin. However, he is still studying now, so it is not convenient for him to come out and thank you in person. Rui, and great elder princess said with a smile. Nanny Gao reached out to take the paper phoenix from Unicliosi and also thanked her. Cousin, do you want it? I bought a few more just now. See if you like it. Seeing that great elder princess accepted the paper phoenix, Chu Yoshin turned his head to look at Xiao Wanru and asked with a smile. Unicliosi went down and took a few more paper phoenixes. This time, there were 3 or 4. Unicliosi took them and put them on the ground. They were colorful and particularly beautiful. There were delicate and beautiful butterfly-shaped ones, a beauty and a peony. They were all in different shapes and looked lifelike. At first glance, they looked very good. I am on the mountain, so. Looking at the paper phoenixes on the ground, Xiao Wanru said hesitantly. It's okay in the Yuhui nunnery. I heard that there is an open space in the back mountain of the Yuhui nunnery. In the past, there were pilgrims who put paper phoenixes there. Why don't we put them there next time? Chu Yoshin thought that Xiao Wanru wanted to put them there, but it was a little inconvenient, so he said in a hurry. Your Highness, I don't think so. I am now on the mountain to observe mourning for my father and mother. Xiao Wanru said a little slowly, so Chu Yoshin interrupted her and misunderstood her meaning. He hurriedly shook his hand and said. It's okay to put paper phoenixes in the back mountain. Don't other pilgrims put them there? Chu Yoshin said. I'm a little different from other pilgrims. Xiao Wanru shook her head and refused. Prince Xian, I heard that your mother is looking for a suitable miss from an aristocratic family for you. You have been on blind dates several times before. Do you like anyone? Rui, and great elder princess asked with a smile when she saw his gloomy look. Her question made Chu Yoshin's face turn red. He looked at Xiao Wanru with a red face and said with a little shyness, Great aunt, my mother is fooling around, and you are also fooling around. I am still young and my brothers are not married yet. Why should I be in a hurry? I can take my time. I have to choose someone I like. Your words are very reasonable. The Empress Dowager told me that you are not very sensible before. I don't think you are sensible at all. You are obviously sensible. Rui, and great elder princess nodded repeatedly and felt very gratified. Of course I have grown up and am no longer a child. Grandma, you always talk about what happened when I was a child. At that time, I was really not sensible. I even offended my cousin when I was a child. Cousin, you won't hold a grudge against me, will you? Chu Yoshin said and turned to Xiao Wanru. Your Highness, don't say that. At that time, I was also young. I'm afraid that I made you feel wronged. Xiao Wanru stood up, bowed sideways, and said softly. Chu Yoshin waved his hand and said with a smile, I didn't feel wronged at all. I just felt a little strange at first sight. I have never seen a miss from an aristocratic family who climbed over the wall. Climbed over the wall. Great elder princess became curious and glanced at her granddaughter with a faint smile. She didn't expect that her granddaughter, who looked delicate, could climb over the wall. Even she felt it was very novel, not to mention Chu Yoshin. Grandma, I'm going back to Duke Xing's mansion. I can't accompany you now. Xiao Wanru blushed, turned her head and glared at Chu Yoshin. This kind of thing was over. Everyone had done something unruly when they were young. Was it worth telling it to her grandma here? After saying that, she bowed to great elder princess, and then bowed to Chu Yoshin. Then she turned around and left with Yujie. Speaking of it, it's actually not a big deal. When I was in Jiangzhou, I saw cousin Wanru poking her head out from behind the wall. Great aunt, I have something to do. I'll tell you in detail next time. Chu Yoshin looked up at Xiao Wanru, who had already walked out of the door, suddenly stood up and said with a dry smile. What else do you want to do? Why don't you tell me? I happen to have nothing to do now. Great Elder Princess urged him to stay with a smile. It's a very important thing. I'll talk to you next time. Seeing that Xiao Wanru had disappeared, Chu Liuxin became more anxious. After bowing to Great Elder Princess, he hurriedly left. Eunuch Lu picked up a pile of paper birds on the ground and chased after him. Chapter 549. This old servant thinks so too. Nanny Gao also frowned. It was not a good thing. The marriage between Prince Chen and Cousin Miss had been approved by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. It was not good for Cousin Miss if Prince Xian showed such an intention at this time. If the Emperor and the Empress Dowager knew it, they might think that Cousin Miss had hooked up with Prince Xian. We should find a chance to talk to Consort Ming about it. I believe that Consort Ming will not like Prince Xian and Zhuozhua being together. Great Elder Princess thought for a while and said. Consort Ming wanted to find a daughter-in-law who could help Chu Liuxin. Although Zhuozhua relied on Duke Xing's mansion, it was the same as having no support, or even worse than having no support. As for her high position and no power, Consort Ming would definitely not agree with Zhuozhua. Great Elder Princess, you are right. It would be better if Prince Xian retreated by himself. Nanny Gao nodded repeatedly. They did not know when the marriage between Prince Chen and Cousin Miss would be announced. Before the official announcement, Cousin Miss's reputation could not be ruined, let alone the news of her and Prince Xian being intimate. But could it be so easy to break up the young man's love? Cousin, cousin. Chu Liuxin shouted loudly behind her. Xiao Wanru wanted to pretend that she could not hear him, but he shouted so loudly that even if she was deaf, she could still hear him. She looked back helplessly and waited for him to run over 2 fences. Your Highness, what else can I do for you? Xiao Wanru raised her face helplessly and asked with a smile. I just want to ask if you are going to Duke Xing's mansion. I happen to have something to talk to your elder brother. Let's go together. Chu Liuxin ran a little faster and said after taking a breath. I am going to Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru turned around and continued to go out. Chu Liuxin hurriedly followed her and said excitedly, I was going to look for first young master before, but I was very busy these days and had no time to go. I happened to meet Cousin Wanru today, so let's go together. Your Highness, did you follow my carriage before? Xiao Wanru asked. Yes, did you find out? I was waiting for your carriage at the foot of the mountain. When I saw you and first Miss Xiao's carriage in different directions, I came over. Eunuch Lu's idea is good. Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion is ill, so you will definitely come down the mountain. Chu Liuxin said proudly. Sure enough, it was Chu Liuxin who had followed them just now. Xiao Wanru felt relieved. It was good that it was not arranged by Duke Xing's mansion. Cousin, how long will it take for you to come out of Yuhui Nunnery? Chu Liuxin asked. About half a year. Xiao Wanru answered. The scenery in the Yuhui Nunnery is really good, but there are too many people in the Ministry of Justice recently. I wanted to go to the Yuhui Nunnery to play, but it is not convenient. If there is no reason, my father will not let me go to the Yuhui Nunnery at this time. Chu Liuxin complained very much. In fact, he had wanted to go to the Yuhui Nunnery a long time ago, but too many things had happened in the Yuhui Nunnery recently. There are few male pilgrims in the Yuhui Nunnery. Xiao Wanru looked at Chu Liuxin, who was still a little jumpy and said. Compared with the other princes, he was the youngest and the most jumpy. Last time there was a big fire from the sky and the hall was burned down. After that, the men in black appeared. The Yuhui Nunnery is really unlucky this year. Anything can happen. Didn't someone go to the Yuhui Nunnery to complain? Instead of going to the hall of the Ministry of Justice, he went to the Yuhui Nunnery to complain. What the hell is this? Chu Liuxin curled his lips and said disdainfully. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat and she asked, why did he go to the Yuhui Nunnery to complain? It was said that if he wanted to complain in the hall of the Ministry of Justice, he had to go through several checkpoints first. The Yuhui Nunnery is investigating the matter. As long as he finds the right person, he will be able to get the result. Chu Liuxin said casually. The people in the Ministry of Justice also accepted it. I thought it was not a big case and they just wanted to deal with a young villain. I didn't expect that something else would happen. What's the matter? Xiao Wanru kept asking. They came all the way and were almost at the parking place. It's about the posthumous son of the former emperor. It's really funny. The former emperor only had one son, third brother. Now he wants to have another one. Chu Liuxin's eyes also fell on the parking place, but he only saw Xiao Wanru's carriage and did not see himself. He couldn't help turning back to find Eunuch Lu. He ran too fast just now and left Eunuch Lu behind. At this time, he rushed over. After turning a door, he finally saw Chu Liuxin. Your Highness, you're wrong. Our carriage didn't stop here. If not here, where? Chu Liuxin said discontentedly. Xiao Wanru took the opportunity to say goodbye to him and said, Your Highness, we'll go first. After saying that, she took Yujie to her carriage. When she got to the front, she saw that the coachman had changed. Greetings, 5th Mississippi. I was sent by Great Elder Princess to drive the carriage for you for the time being. The coachman said respectfully. He looked like he was in his 30s. Where is the previous person? Xiao Wanru asked calmly. When the carriage stopped here just now, he quarreled with a servant in the mansion and they fought. Great Elder Princess ordered that such an ignorant coachman should not drive the carriage for 5th Mississippi. She has sent someone to take him back to Duke Xing's mansion just now. The coachman reported. Xiao Wanru nodded and knew that her grandma had dealt with this matter properly. She stepped on a small stool and got into the carriage. Yujie also jumped into the carriage. After the coachman got on the carriage, he turned the horse around and skillfully raised the whip. With a whip, the carriage went to the side door. Chu Liuxin followed behind and stamped his feet helplessly. He said angrily, Eunuch Lu, why is our carriage not in the same place as 5th Miss Xiao's carriage? Well, I don't know. It was like this when Great Elder Princess brought it in just now. Your Highness, let's go over. Seeing that his master was unhappy, Eunuch Lu answered carefully. Let's go. Chu Liuxin said helplessly. If he went back now, even if he also went to Duke Xing's mansion, he was afraid that it would be too late. In the carriage, Yujie was also in a dilemma. Miss, if the coachman of Duke Xing's mansion is changed, will old madam be angry and annoyed with you? Even if I don't change, she will annoy me from time to time. She doesn't like me originally. If something happens to me in order to please her, I'd better not please her. Xiao Wanru said indifferently with a faint smile on her face. Unless she used her life to please old madam of Duke Xing's mansion, she was unwilling to do so. For the sake of the so-called grandmother who had always wanted to harm her, she really didn't think it was necessary to please her. Old madam would not remember the so-called grandmother-granddaughter relationship, and she would forget it. Will old madam change the coachman again? Yujie was still worried. Great Elder Princess's method seemed very rude, and old madam of Duke Xing's mansion was not a pushover. She might have done so in the past, but not now. Duke Xing's mansion is in the wrong. Xiao Wanru sneered and said with a trace of coldness in her eyes. Do you think old madam knows that Daoist Xiushui is a fake Taoist priest? If she knows it and still acts like this, she is really vicious. Yujie understood what Xiao Wanru was talking about. After thinking for a while, she said angrily. It was really not like what a human would do. It was a brothel. So what if she knows it? So what if she doesn't know it? That kind of mansion is disgusting. Xiao Wanru sneered and said with a cold light in her eyes. It suddenly became quiet in the carriage. Looking at the cold indifference on Xiao Wanru's jade-like face, Yujie felt sorry for her. Xiao Wanru was such a good miss, but she met such disgusting and vicious relatives. On the surface, they seemed to be hypocritical, but in fact, they were really cruel. The carriage went all the way forward and soon arrived at Duke Xing's mansion. Hearing that Xiao Wanru had come back, Madame of Duke Xing came out excitedly to welcome her. They met not far from the gate. Wanru, you're finally back. Your grandmother was talking about you just now. Come on. Madame of Duke Xing said with a kind smile and a very excited look on her face, as if she was really so happy because Xiao Wanru came to see old Madame, and old Madame also really missed her. In fact, old Madame was sick. In the letter, she just asked Xiao Yanru to go down the mountain and did not mention Xiao Wanru at all. Xiao Wanru bowed deeply to Madame of Duke Xing and said, Second aunt. Look, you look like a flower, but you have to stay in the nunnery every day. Even if your parents are watching in the netherworld, they will be happy to have such a filial daughter like you. Madame of Duke Xing picked up a handkerchief and pretended to wipe her tears, while secretly looking Xiao Wanru up and down. The more she looked at Xiao Wanru, the more shocked she became. She hadn't seen Xiao Wanru for more than 2 years. Just now, she recognized Xiao Wanru at a glance because the old maid beside her had gone up the mountain with old Madame. This girl was so beautiful. Her face was as beautiful as a fairy in the painting. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also born with charm, which made Madame of Duke Xing feel more and more disgusted. How could a miss from an aristocratic family have such a kind of natural charm? Even if her every move was the same as others, her actions looked more gentle and charming. At that time, Infanta Qinghua had a kind of charm, which was a little less than that of this girl in front of her. But even so, her cousin was so fascinated by her that he didn't hesitate to go against old Madame to marry her. What was so beautiful about such an eyebrow? At first glance, she looked like a cheap person. She was not as elegant and graceful as her daughter, who looked like a miss from an aristocratic family. Madame of Duke Xing's mansion was full of contempt and disgust in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. She smiled and let Xiao Wanru in while saying unconsciously, Did you use the previous coachman badly? If you don't like him, tell me, and I will change him for you immediately. You are the 5th Miss of Duke Xing's mansion. You can change any coachman you want. Her words seemed to be for Xiao Wanru's good, but she didn't mean it. She was obviously blaming Xiao Wanru for taking the initiative to change the coachman. Second aunt, are you talking about the fight between the coachmen? This matter was handled by my maternal grandmother, and I don't know the specific situation. If you think there is something wrong, you can send someone to tell my maternal grandmother. Now I am using the coachman sent by my maternal grandmother. If you think it is not suitable, you can also tell my maternal grandmother. Xiao Wanru said as she walked in. She looked indifferent and alienated, just like Madame of Duke Xing's words. It sounded nice, but after thinking about it carefully, Madame of Duke Xing didn't dare to question Rui, and great elder princess. How could Madame of Duke Xing not understand? She hated Xiao Wanru in her heart, but she couldn't show it on her face. She could only say with a smile, This is a trivial matter, a trivial matter. Let's go to see your grandmother. Chapter 550. When they entered old Madame's courtyard, a maid had already lifted the curtain. Xiao Wanru followed Madame of Duke Xing into the courtyard. From the main room to the bedroom, it was very quiet inside, with only the sound of sobbing. Looking up, she saw old Madame lying on the wide bed. She seemed to have aged more than 10 years overnight. Her face was covered with wrinkles, and her face was pale and haggard. At first glance, it could be seen that she was indeed ill. Xiao Yanru was holding old Madame's hand in front of the bed. At this time, hearing the voice, she wiped her tears, turned her head, and patted old Madame's hand gently when she saw Xiao Wanru. Grandma, 5th sister is here to see you. Old Madame, who was lying on the bed, raised her head slowly and looked at Xiao Wanru sharply. Her kind look immediately became stiff. Under such a gaze, Xiao Wanru stepped forward gracefully, bowed deeply to old Madame, and said, Grandma. Old Madame's eyes were full of disgust. She was indeed a malignant star and a troublemaker. Her family had been ruined by her. No, sit down. Old Madame said with no joy or anger on her face. What had happened before had been forgotten. At this time, she definitely could not reprimand Xiao Wanru. Maybe the Empress Dowager would summon Xiao Wanru under Rui An's suggestion. Xiao Yanru patted old madam's hand to comfort her, stood up, and said softly with red eyes, "Fifth sister, why did you come so late? Grandma has asked someone to ask you several times just now." Her gentle attitude seemed to show that she really regarded Xiao Wanru as her sister. Old madam couldn't help showing disgust on her face again. She was really a bad girl. She was obviously using her family name, but she had such a good relationship with the first princess of Rui An's family. "I met Prince Xian at Grandma's place just now and brought some news, so I was delayed for more than 2 hours." Xiao Wanru said calmly and turned a blind eye to old madam's disgust. Since old madam could do such a vicious and heinous thing to her own granddaughter by framing her, why should she pay more attention to her? There was no need for her to pretend to be harmonious and tender with her granddaughter anymore. Xiao Yanru was different from her. She had always been filial in front of old madam, but she did intend to separate from her before. Although she came back earlier than her, it was impossible for her to come back earlier. Xiao Yanru flaunted her filial piety, so she must have come directly to old madam after coming back to show how much she cared about old madam. As expected, as soon as she said that, old madam's face darkened. She hurriedly lowered the corners of her mouth, glanced at Xiao Yanru a few more times, but did not say anything. "I don't have that much time." Fifth sister might have remembered wrongly. Seeing old madam's look, Xiao Yanru knew that Xiao Wanru had ruined her plan, but she didn't show it on her face. She pretended not to hear anything and explained vaguely. "How could I remember wrongly? It's a coincidence that Prince Xian was also there when we entered the city. He just mentioned that we didn't go back to Duke Xing's mansion after entering the city." Xiao Wanru said with some surprise. Her voice wasn't very loud, but everyone in the room heard it. The maids all lowered their heads and didn't dare to move. With Prince Xian as the witness, it was true. Just now, when the first miss cried in front of old madam, she repeatedly said that she had received the news from old madam and hurried down the mountain. After entering the door, she went straight to old madam anxiously. But how could she explain it now? Old madam glanced at Xiao Yanru's face, and the corners of her mouth drooped even more. She shook her hand on the bed impatiently. When one was ill, some emotions couldn't be controlled. Xiao Yanru wanted to bite Xiao Wanru a few times in her heart, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. "I went to the pharmacy before and wanted to see if there were any good medicinal materials in the pharmacy to give to Grandma. I didn't expect that I couldn't find any particularly good medicinal materials after visiting several pharmacies, so I only found some ordinary ones. Thinking that there were only a few medicinal materials in the mansion, I didn't mention it. But fifth sister revealed it. Since Xiao Wanru mentioned Prince Xian, Xiao Yanru would certainly not doubt it. She could only excuse herself in this way. She turned around and said to Shuqi, who was standing behind her, "Go and bring the medicinal materials I bought just now." "Yes, first miss." Shuqi nodded knowingly and walked out. Since they were only ordinary medicinal materials, there were naturally some in the mansion. She just needed to go and get some. Xiao Wanru narrowed her eyes. She didn't expect that she could expose Xiao Yanru's beauty skin at once. The more urgent the matter was, the more she couldn't get angry. She just needed to take it slow. "Old madam, great elder princess's mansion sent someone here and said that they have something important to ask you." An old maid reported outside the door. Old madam leaned back. She couldn't bear to hear the words, "great elder princess," now. She waved her hand and said, "Wan Yan, go and deal with it. I have a headache again. Let stay. The others can leave, lest I feel uncomfortable seeing so many people." The so-called feeling uncomfortable seeing so many people, of course, referred to Xiao Wanru. She and Yuchie had just entered the room. "Grandma, I'll leave now." "Grandma, please take care of yourself," Xiao Wanru said knowingly. She glanced at Xiao Yanru with her watery eyes and sneered in her heart. Old Madam really wanted to see Xiao Yanru and keep Xiao Yanru to talk with her, but she also hindered Xiao Yanru, which was a good thing for Nanny Gao. Xiao Yanru was more cunning than Madam of Duke Xing and reacted quickly. Her words and Shuqi's medicinal materials made up for the previous matter seamlessly. However, she misjudged people's hearts after all. Even though it was seamless now, the so-called seamless plan would slowly be torn apart when other things or evidence came out in the future. Wanru, let's go to see Nanny Gao of Great Elder Princess's mansion. Madam of Duke Xing said with a gentle smile on her face, as if she didn't hear old Madam's disgust. Xiao Wanru nodded and followed Madam of Duke Xing out. Xiao Yanru frowned and her heart skipped a beat. She had a bad feeling. As soon as Xiao Wanru arrived, Great Elder Princess's servant came. Moreover, the servant was Rui, and Great Elder Princess's personal nanny. She had stayed in Great Elder Princess's mansion and knew that Nanny Gao was powerful. Many affairs in Great Elder Princess's mansion were handled by Nanny Gao. Rui and Great Elder Princess had never been interested in managing the mansion. Only Nanny Gao managed such a large Great Elder Princess's mansion in such an orderly manner, which was incomparable to ordinary servants. In fact, she wanted to see Nanny Gao, but when she saw old Madam waving at her with a smile on the bed, she knew that she couldn't leave. She could only wipe the corners of her eyes and look worried. She walked to the bed and sat down on the small stool again to comfort old Madam. In the flower hall, Nanny Gao sat there with two servant girls standing behind her. Outside the flower hall, several craftsmen stood aside obediently. When they saw Madam of Duke Xing and others coming over, they bowed their heads and retreated to one side. Seeing so many people coming from Great Elder Princess's mansion, Madam of Duke Xing had an intuition that it might not be a good thing today and felt uneasy. After stepping into the door, Nanny Gao stood up, bowed to Madam of Duke Xing first, and then bowed to Xiao Wanru. Nanny Gao, please sit down. Madam of Duke Xing said politely. With Nanny Gao's identity, she could even say a few words in front of the Empress Dowager. Of course, she didn't dare to offend her. In other words, old Madam could ignore Nanny Gao, but she couldn't. Nanny Gao didn't stand on ceremony. As long as she followed the rules, she sat down again in the chair. Madam of Duke Xing and Xiao Wanru also sat down together. The servants served tea. Xiao Wanru picked up the teacup and took a sip gently. She took a sip, lowered her eyes, and listened quietly. Next, she just needed to listen. I wonder why Great Elder Princess sent Nanny Gao here. Madam of Duke Xing put down the teacup, took a handkerchief to wipe the tea stains on the corners of her mouth, and asked with a smile. I'm really sorry to disturb you by coming to your mansion. But this matter can't be delayed, so I have to come here shamelessly. I hope Madam can forgive me. Nanny Gao said politely. Madam of Duke Xing enjoyed her words very much. She nodded at once, and the smile on her face became more and more amiable. Nanny Gao, if you have anything to say, just say it. If I can do it, I will definitely obey you. It's great that Madam can say so. In fact, this matter is indeed the matter of your mansion. Great Elder Princess also knows that your mansion has prepared it for a long time. But Great Elder Princess only has one granddaughter, so she always feels that she can't worry about it. So she asked me to come here. I want to see the courtyard prepared for the fifth miss in your mansion. I brought someone to measure the rooms so that they can make a set of suitable furniture. Nanny Gao said with a smile. She reached out and pointed at several craftsmen standing outside. These are all famous craftsmen in the city. Our Great Elder Princess specially invited them here. We can't let the fifth miss feel wronged. In another half a year, the fifth miss will go down the mountain. If these are not prepared well, the fifth miss will not even have a place to live at that time. Madam of Duke Xing was slightly shocked. She glanced at Xiao Wanru, who was sitting quietly on one side and didn't interrupt. A trace of embarrassment and ferocity flashed across her face. The courtyard has been prepared, but it has not been completely cleaned up. As for the furniture in the room, it has been prepared a long time ago. We won't bother Great Elder Princess's kindness. Madam of Duke Xing said. Who would bother to prepare a courtyard for Xiao Wanru? Such a good courtyard had been burned before. Thinking of this, Madam of Duke Xing still felt distressed. Madam, Great Elder Princess naturally wants to make a set of furniture for the cousin Miss herself. She also wants to see the courtyard where the cousin Miss lives. Among the several misses in your mansion, the cousin Miss has the highest status. Great Elder Princess may ask the Empress Dowager for a reward for the cousin Mississippi. If it is not the best courtyard in the mansion, even the Empress Dowager will not be able to explain it. Nanny Gao's words were extremely impolite, and her face was serious. She had been following Great Elder Princess, and in some ways, she was quite similar to Great Elder Princess. Especially in such a serious situation, it inexplicably made Madam of Duke Xing feel a little weak. After crumpling the handkerchief in her hand, she secretly gritted her teeth. The most distinguished miss? Why her? Nanny Gao, the several misses in the mansion have the same status, so the courtyard they live in is naturally similar. If Wanru is given the best courtyard, I'm afraid it will be unfair to other misses. Swallowing her anger, Madam of Duke Xing explained with a smile. Chapter 551. Madam, our cousin Miss is the daughter of the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua. To be honest, when the former heir of Duke Xing was still alive, Duke Xing was just an idle child, and Madam was just an ordinary second Madam of Duke Xing's mansion. What's more, our cousin Miss still has the royal bloodline. In this respect, she is more distinguished than other misses. Nanny Gao said with a stern face. Madam of Duke Xing was ashamed and angry. At that time, she was indeed just an ordinary second madam. As for the royal bloodline, she did not dare to refuse. She held the teacup tightly and suppressed the anger in her heart. She had to admit that the royal bloodline was greater than heaven. Don't worry, Nanny Gao. I will find the best courtyard for Wanru. She had to swallow her anger and did not dare to refuse. Thank you for your concern, madam. Our great elder princess will be very happy to know it. Madam, please ask someone to take them to the Piaoyuan courtyard to measure it. I heard that the Piaoyuan courtyard is the best empty courtyard in the mansion. This courtyard is good, and it was originally intended for our cousin Miss to live in. But someone wanted to hurt our cousin Miss and burn her to death, so the courtyard was burned. But now that the courtyard has been repaired, it naturally belongs to our cousin Miss. Nanny Gao smiled and wiped the water on her hands with a handkerchief. Her attitude was very amiable. Madam of Duke Xing turned to look at Xiao Wanru with cold eyes. She gritted her teeth and said, this courtyard has not been built yet, and many places have not been completely arranged. It is not suitable for people to live in yet. It was prepared for her son. Although the layout inside was not as good as the previous one, it had been carefully prepared for more than 2 years. How could she let Xiao Wanru get it for nothing? It doesn't matter if it is not suitable for people to live in for the time being. Madam, have you forgotten that our cousin Miss hasn't gone down the mountain yet? Even with the current layout, our cousin Miss can still live in it after half a year when she comes out of the Yuhui nunnery. Nanny Gao continued to say with a smile, as if she did not see Madam of Duke Xing turn her head and stare at Xiao Wanru. I'm afraid that old Madam has to agree with this matter. Old Madam told me a long time ago that this courtyard would be useful. If I give it to Wanru rashly, I'm afraid that old Madam will be angry. She is ill now and can't bear any anger. Why don't we talk about it after a while when old Madam is a little better? Madam of Duke Xing turned her head and said sincerely and softly. He couldn't refuse to put the blame on old Madam, but old Madam could. Moreover, old Madam was still ill now. He could delay it today and discuss countermeasures with old Madam next time. I heard that the Empress Dowager is going to investigate the matter of our cousin Miss being framed. If old Madam recovers, she has to cooperate with the Empress Dowager's investigation. I'm afraid that she has no time to care about such a trivial matter of living in the courtyard. Moreover, the Empress Dowager and Great Elder Princess are both thinking about who would have such evil intentions towards Biao Young Lady and wholeheartedly want to destroy Biao Young Lady. If Great Elder Princess finds the culprit, no matter who it is, even if it is the wife of a marquis, she will not let it go easily. Nanny Gao's words were extremely gentle, but the meaning in her words made Madame of Duke Xing feel cold on her back. Did Rui and Great Elder Princess mean to investigate this matter to the end? On the surface, Old Madame's affairs seemed to be handled by Old Madame alone, but in fact, Madame of Duke Xing and Xiao Yenru secretly helped a lot. Now hearing Nanny Gao's words and looking at Nanny Gao's almost gentle voice, she suddenly felt a chill on her back. She was shocked in her heart. At this time, she must not arouse Great Elder Princess's suspicion. I really have to trouble Great Elder Princess with this matter. Old Madame is seriously ill, and I don't know much about it. I have to trouble Great Elder Princess. As for the matter of the courtyard, I will arrange it for Old Madame first. I think Old Madame may keep it for Wanru. Madame of Duke Xing thought for a while and immediately said with a smile. She called an old maid and asked her to take the craftsman at the door to measure the room. At this time, she could not show her malice towards Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru raised her head slightly and glanced at Madame of Duke Xing's amiable face calmly. Even though she knew that Madame of Duke Xing was hypocritical, her face still looked very amiable, as if she was sincere. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice, and her watery eyes fell on Madame of Duke Xing's feet. She saw that Madame of Duke Xing's feet under her skirt were gently stretching from time to time. It could be seen that she was so angry that she didn't even care about etiquette, but she had to follow Nanny Gao's words. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth. Very good, this was the way. Seeing that Madame of Duke Xing sent an old maid away, Nanny Gao's smile became gentler. She asked about old Madame of Duke Xing's health and said that she specially brought Great Elder Princess's greetings and sent some precious medicinal materials to old Madame of Duke Xing's mansion so that old Madame could take good care of herself. When she recovered, they could find out who intended to hurt Xiao Wanru and who smeared honey on her jewelry. Madame of Duke Xing agreed with all of Nanny Gao's words, but she felt guilty. She was angry and resentful, but she could do nothing about it. She was secretly shocked. Was Great Elder Princess holding on to this point? When the two of them talked, Xiao Wanru had been listening quietly without saying a word. If Madame of Duke Xing occasionally glanced at her, she would greet her with a gentle smile. Seeing this attitude, Madame of Duke Xing could not swallow the resentment in her heart and could not spit it out. She was full of resentment. She didn't believe that this bitch didn't know anything. As soon as she came from Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion, Great Elder Princess's mansion sent someone to ask for the best courtyard for her. That was her favorite courtyard, which she prepared for her eldest son's marriage. Her previous painstaking efforts were ruined, which made her want to vomit blood. Now her painstaking efforts in the past 2 years were going to be ruined again. Xiao Wanru looked at Madame of Duke Xing's irrepressible resentment extremely calmly and turned her face with a smile, which was like 100 flowers blooming. She and Madame of Duke Xing were bound to be incompatible before, so there was no need to please her. No matter how hard she tried to please her, Madame of Duke Xing would not be soft-hearted when it was time to kill her. Then why did she make things difficult for herself? She just wanted to make a strong return and let everyone understand that even though she was not liked by old Madame and Madame of Duke Xing, no one could look down on her because of her identity. The craftsman who was measuring came back after a long time. After showing a sketch to Nanny Gao nodded, stood up and said goodbye. Xiao Wanru and Nanny Xing sent her to the gate on behalf of Madame of Duke Xing. Cousin miss, you can go back first. I will go back to report. Nanny Gao said with a smile at the gate. That sketch is good, but I don't know if it is accurate. Xiao Wanru said softly, if you can let someone in the mansion see it and sign it, it will be more accurate. Nanny Gao was a smart person. She immediately understood the meaning of her words and secretly cheered for her cousin Mississippi. With such an exquisite heart, it seemed that she had been negligent. She turned to look at Nanny Sheng with a smile and said, Nanny Sheng, why don't you sign it? Otherwise, I'm afraid that Great Elder Princess won't believe it. This meant that Nanny Gao in front of her was not as prestigious as she had imagined in front of Great Elder Princess. She needed someone else's signature to get her approval. Nanny Sheng was disdainful in her heart. They were all servants. Although she was also the confidant of Madame of Duke Xing, she was still much worse than the confidant of Great Elder Princess. Nanny Sheng was both jealous and envious of Nanny Gao, who could put pressure on Madame of Duke Xing in front of her. Now listening to Nanny Gao's words, it seemed that she did not think highly of Nanny Gao as she had imagined, so she couldn't help feeling a little proud. She asked someone to get a pen and paper, signed the name of Duke Xing's mansion on the spot, and also signed the date at the request of Nanny Gao. Nanny Gao thanked Nanny Sheng politely, and then got on the carriage with the people of Great Elder Princess's mansion and left. Xiao Wanru watched the carriage leave at the door, and then turned to go back with Nanny Sheng. When she returned to the flower hall, she found that there were a few more people. Not only Xiao Hua and the first young master of Duke Xing's mansion, but also Prince Xian was there. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, Prince Xian smiled more brightly. After Xiao Wanru bowed to him, he immediately said kindly, "Cousin, did you go to see off the people of Great Elder Princess's mansion just now?" "Nanny Gao, you left too fast. I originally wanted to bring a few words to Grand Aunt, but I didn't expect that I was still late." Xiao Hua and glanced at Prince Xian calmly. Today, Prince Xian came very suddenly. After chatting with him in the study for a while, they talked about Xiao Wanru in the mansion. It happened that Great Elder Princess's mansion also sent someone here. Hearing that, Prince Xian hurriedly said that he had something to say to Great Elder Princess, so Xiao Hua and had to bring him here. Judging from the situation in front of him, could it be that Prince Xian liked his fifth sister? Prince Xian had a short temper and was younger than Xiao Hua and he had not played with Xiao Hua and since he was a child and was not close to him in the past. However, this time, he inexplicably expressed his intention to be close to Xiao Hua and, which really made Xiao Hua and think about it. Madame of Duke Xing was also looking at Prince Xian's reaction. How could she not understand at a glance? It was obvious that Prince Xian had taken a fancy to her niece. Madame of Duke Xing secretly curled her lips. Among the princes, Prince Xian was also one of the most unlikely. With his temperament and past behavior, no one would see him. However, Prince Xian's mother didn't seem to think so. She had been secretly trying to choose a good wife with real power and noble status to help her son. Xiao Wanru. Madame of Duke Xing smiled coldly. If Prince Xian really liked Xiao Wanru and wanted to marry Xiao Wanru, concubine Ming would definitely tear her apart. This could be considered a good help. If your highness has something to do, you can directly send someone to Great Elder Princess's mansion. Why don't you send a servant to bring a message? Xiao Wanru said and then bowed deeply to Madame of Duke Xing, "Second aunt, I'm going to see Grandma. I'm worried about Grandma's health. I have to go back to Yuhui Nunnery later. I won't see Grandma for a period of time." "Then go and see her." Madame of Duke Xing didn't want to see her either, so she waved her hand and said. She was afraid that if she continued to see her, she would vent her anger on Xiao Wanru. Chapter 552. Xiao Wanru didn't stay in Old Madame's place for a long time and then left. Old Madame didn't intend to keep her. She continued to talk with Xiao Yanru and ignored Xiao Wanru, as if she didn't hear what she said. Xiao Wanru looked calm, as if she didn't know that Old Madame treated her slowly on purpose. After bowing to Old Madame politely, she left with her servants. When she met Madame of Duke Xing on the way, she still gave way to her politely, bowed and said goodbye politely. She was so polite that Madame of Duke Xing, who had a gloomy face, could not find anything wrong with her. After saying a few words in a gloomy tone and watching Xiao Wanru leave, Madame of Duke Xing went to Old Madame's Chuntang courtyard. After telling the cause and effect of what had happened just now, Old Madame, who was lying on the bed, was so angry that she trembled all over. She picked up a book beside her hand, which was used to record the pulse on the pillow, and threw it at Madame of Duke Xing. She said angrily, you are useless. How could you let fifth maid take the Piaoyuan courtyard away? That is for an, The book hit Madame of Duke Xing, but it didn't hurt. Madame of Duke Xing knelt down with a plop and called Old Madam. For a moment, she felt sad and said, Old Madam, I have no choice. They said that you have to decide on this matter. They also said that the Empress Dowager will not let go of this matter and will definitely find out the truth. Madame of Duke Xing wiped away her tears and cried. Old Madam was stunned and became more and more sad and angry. If she had known that Xiushui of Baiyun Taoist Temple was an evil Daoist disguised as a woman, she wouldn't have invited him. Now, not only did she fail, but she was also involved because of this evil Daoist. Rui and was threatening her daughter-in-law with her affairs. Thinking of her daughter-in-law's grievances, Old Madam couldn't help but feel sad. She took Madame of Duke Xing's hand and patted it hard, comforting her, well, don't cry. Let her have this courtyard. Whether she can live in it or not depends on her. If she asks to change the courtyard in the future, no matter how powerful Great Elder Princess is, she can't do anything to us. She was already thinking about how to prevent Xiao Wanru from living in the Piaoyuan courtyard. Xiao Yanru was also shocked. She didn't expect that Great Elder Princess's mansion would react so quickly and take advantage of the situation. If it weren't for this matter, Great Elder Princess's mansion wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. But now it seemed that they were in the wrong, so they couldn't suppress Xiao Wanru by force at this time. Instead, they had to make friends with her. They couldn't let others think that it was Duke Xing's mansion who did it, so that Great Elder Princess could take advantage of it. How hateful. She rolled her eyes and immediately had a new idea. She took 2 steps forward and said to Old Madam, whose face was livid with anger, with a smile, Grandma, don't be angry. Since fifth younger sister likes it, it doesn't matter. Eldest brother doesn't need to live here. Isn't there an empty yard over there? Where else can I find such a nice courtyard? Old Madam said helplessly. She loved her eldest grandson the most, who was so promising and obedient, but now even his wedding room had been taken away. When they were discussing the marriage, she had asked someone to come to the courtyard to have a look and suggested that he would live in this courtyard in the future. That family was very satisfied with it. Now, the courtyard was gone before the marriage was settled. How could she explain it to others? Grandma, you forgot that eldest uncle's courtyard is more suitable for eldest brother to live in, isn't it? Xiao Yanru reminded her with a smile. As soon as Xiao Yanru said that, Madame of Duke Xing couldn't help breathing rapidly. She pinched the handkerchief harder and looked at Old Madam longingly. She had thought about that courtyard for a long time, but she didn't dare to say it directly. Now her daughter mentioned it in a way that seemed to happen to think of it, but she didn't know what it was. Her daughter was much smarter than her. Living in it represented the identity of the heir of Duke Xing, and it would be easier for the emperor to approve the request to confer the title of heir of Duke Xing. That courtyard can't be used for the time being. Although Old Madam couldn't wait to give this courtyard to her eldest grandson as compensation, she didn't lose her mind after all. There are things of Infanta Qinghua in it, so Rui and Great Elder Princess will definitely intervene. Moreover, that courtyard also belongs to the first branch. How is still here, so we have to think about it in the long run. Previously, she had thought of dealing with this matter from the screen wall where her son wrote. Unexpectedly, it was discovered by How, and then it was brought to Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess, who was arrogant, even brought it to the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. Not only did the Empress Dowager teach her a lesson, but even the Empress Dowager said that she couldn't be partial to the second branch, because that courtyard originally belonged to the first branch. The 3 branches of Duke Xing's mansion generally lived in different areas. The first branch lived in the middle, and Old Madam also lived in that area. On one side was the second branch, and on the other side was the third branch. But later, because there was only Xiao Yuanhao in the first branch, and the supervisor was Madame of Duke Xing, the boundary between the first branch and the second branch became blurred. Since the first branch inherited the title, its courtyard was built differently from the others, which was more magnificent and had a good environment. The courtyards that Madame of Duke Xing liked were all in the first branch's courtyard. If it was really discussed, with Xiao Yuanhao's presence, they really couldn't do anything. But what about him? He took someone to see it before. What should I say? Madame of Duke Xing wiped her tears again. Mother, did you take someone to see the courtyard and the furniture before? Xiao Yanru asked in surprise. Yes, I have. At that time, I thought it was not bad. Your father and I like this marriage, and your elder brother is also very happy. But if it is ruined because of this, what should we do? This is the best marriage that your father and I can choose. She was the eldest lineal daughter of the Minister of the Ministry of Works. She was beautiful and had a good reputation, so everyone in the mansion liked her. The Minister of the Ministry of Works was a person with real power. Although he was not as powerful as the Minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel, he was also a rare candidate for marriage. He might even be more useful than the Minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel in some aspects. The eldest lineal daughter of an aristocratic family was carefully cultivated. When she became the Madame of Duke Xing's mansion in the future, she would be able to handle affairs with ease. In any case, it was a good thing. The Minister of the Ministry of Works also expressed their satisfaction with Xiao Hua but they said that they would consider it for a few days. Fearing that something unexpected would happen, Madame of Duke Xing specially invited the Madame of the Minister of the Ministry of Works and this miss to come to their mansion to enjoy the flowers. She showed them around by the way, deliberately turned to the front of the courtyard, and took them in to see it. Madame of Duke Xing also indicated that it was prepared for her son. She remembered that the Madame of the Minister of the Ministry of Works repeatedly nodded and praised it at that time. Now she had to give up the courtyard, so how could she be reconciled? Mother, can you go to the palace and talk to the Empress Dowager about it? This. I am willing to compensate Fifth Miss with the other 2 courtyards. Madame of Duke Xing grabbed Old Madame's hand and begged. Old Madame shook her head and said, I can't go to the palace at this time. Xiao Wanru's matter was over. She left with the excuse of illness because she was really in poor health, but she did not pretend to be ill. If she went to the Empress Dowager at this time, she would not get anything good. Grandma, the courtyard and the furniture are all arranged by my mother, and some are even my mother's dowry. Can we really not get the courtyard back? Xiao Yanru also said with a sad face. This, really can't for the time being. Let's put it under her name first. When she comes back, there will be a way to make her give up the courtyard. Old Madame gritted her teeth and said with hatred. She increasingly felt that it was wrong to let Xiao Wanru return to the family at that time. Why didn't she strongly oppose it at that time? Madame of Duke Xing burst into tears with heartache. Old Madame's words actually made little difference. Even if Xiao Wanru was forced to give up the courtyard, others would only think that she gave the courtyard to her son as a wedding house because she didn't want to live there anymore. Her son sounded like a scavenger, which made it hard for her to accept. She couldn't help but resent Old Madame's uselessness in her heart. She couldn't even keep a courtyard for her son. In vain, she had said that the whole mansion would belong to her son in the future, and her courtyard and her furniture would all belong to her. She was really unwilling to accept it. Thinking of this, she suddenly remembered Xiao Yanru's words just now. She immediately raised her head and said, Mother, forget about the courtyard. According to you, I can give it to you, but not the furniture. I prepared it for and I can't let others take advantage of it. In fact, everything in the courtyard had been prepared. Xiao Hua could live in it when he got married. This was also the reason why Madame of Duke Xing took the wife of the Minister of the Ministry of Works to visit it before. You want to move the furniture in it? Old Madame frowned and inexplicably felt that this idea was not very good. Yes, the furniture in it belongs to Since the servants of Great Elder Princess's mansion will make a set according to the size of the room, this set originally belongs to our mansion. Let's move it back. Madame of Duke Xing said righteously. Old Madame fell silent for a moment and didn't object this time. In fact, what she said was reasonable. Since Rui and great elder princess intervened, she could give them the furniture. But in fact, in addition to some hard furniture, they also needed to buy some other things to decorate the house. Old Madam selectively forgot that the mansion also needed to buy some furniture in the Piaoyin courtyard. Grandma, I have to go up the mountain to accompany my fifth sister. Since this matter had been discussed, Xiao Yanru stepped forward and said. Old Madam's illness was not serious as she had imagined, and she should be fine as long as she took good care of herself. This was only a half-true illness. You still want to go? What are you going to do? Just let her guard it by herself. Does she want you to suffer on the mountain with her? Old Madam said unhappily. Grandma, the officials of the Ministry of Justice are still on the mountain and many things are still being dealt with. If I leave at this time and leave my fifth sister alone, how will others think of our mansion? I'd better stay for a while to accompany her. We can't let others criticize our mansion, Xiao Yanru said softly. Of course, what she said was to protect the reputation of Duke Xing's mansion. Old Madam took her hand and felt increasingly distressed. You are still so kind. You always think of others. I am useless. Since you think so, I won't stop you. Ask your mother to prepare more food and necessities. Don't live a hard life. Old Madam told her. Thank you, Grandma. Please prepare 2 sets of food for me and 1 set for my fifth sister. Xiao Yanru said, seeming to miss Xiao Wanru very much. Chapter 553. You don't have to worry about her. Her biological grandmother will take care of her. If we send too much, she will think that we want to do something. Old Madam said grumpily. Seeing her tired face, Xiao Yanru quickly agreed. Then she chatted with her for a while and fed her medicine. Seeing that Old Madam was sleepy, she left. The mother and daughter came to the courtyard and stood still. Several servants stayed far away from them and did not dare to get too close to them. Are you going back now? It's too dangerous on the mountain. You'd better not go. We can just send some things over. Madam of Duke Xing was also worried about what had happened on the mountain. She had heard that many people had died in the Yuhui nunnery before. Thinking of this, she trembled with fear. Mother, don't worry. It won't happen again. Xiao Yanru said with certainty, the Ministry of Justice has been investigating so strictly. No matter who it is impossible for them to do anything. Who do you think it is? How dare they really kill people? Madam of Duke Xing said worriedly. Who knows? It could be one of them, or it could be someone from the previous dynasty. Xiao Yanru comforted Madam of Duke Xing softly with her eyes flickering. In fact, she really didn't know. She had sent a letter that day in order to fish in troubled waters. She had sent a letter to both Prince Yu and Prince Shou. She didn't know whether both of them had intervened, or whether one of them had intervened, or whether neither of them had intervened. Was it really the remaining evil of the previous dynasty? She didn't want to get involved in this kind of thing too much. A smart woman shouldn't know too much. At that time, she didn't directly say what she had guessed, but just hinted to some trivial things about Pushun Nun. Even if the two of them couldn't figure it out, their counselors should have figured it out. She just said something she had seen or occasionally thought of. As for thinking deeply, as a miss of an aristocratic family, she didn't know this. The only thing that made Xiao Yanru regret was that Xiao Wanru was fine in the Buddha hall where the ritual happened at the beginning. Be careful when you go up the mountain. I think that girl is not a good person. Madam of Duke Xing warned her worriedly. Mother, don't worry. Xiao Yanru said indifferently, I heard that the princes are going to choose consorts soon. If I leave at this time to accompany my fifth sister, no one will choose me. At this time, the situation was not clear. She didn't want to be the first to get involved, but she couldn't say no. In private, both Prince Xian and Prince Zhou thought she loved him. With her identity, she couldn't be a concubine. If they went to the palace and said they wanted to marry her, she could only obediently marry them. The situation was unclear and it would be risky to marry anyone. She was the person who would become the empress in the future and she was not willing to lose her life for the position of the princess consort. So what if she was the princess? If that day came, no matter Prince Yu or Prince Shou, she could easily become the empress with a little trick. In addition, with the help of Duke Xing's mansion behind her, it would be easy for her to become the empress. At that time, who would remember who the princess consort was? Xiao Yanru was extremely confident about this. The only uneasiness came from Xiao Wanru. Since she met Xiao Wanru, she had always felt that Xiao Wanru was a hidden danger. She even faintly felt that if there was a woman who might ruin her plan, it was most likely to be Xiao Wanru. Now with Xiao Wanru's power, she could not only avoid the consort selection, but also gain a good reputation and keep an eye on Xiao Wanru. It could be said that she could kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Why not? Xiao Wanru was observing mourning for her parents. Accompanying her could also be regarded as observing mourning. Even the royal family couldn't allow a woman observing mourning to come in to choose a consort. Since you think so, it's naturally the best. Madame of Duke Xing had long known Xiao Yanru's plan, but because so many things had happened in the Yuhui nunnery, she was really a little worried, so she wanted to let Xiao Yanru stay in the mansion for a while. Since the consort selection was mentioned again, she suddenly thought of what had happened to Prince Xian just now. Prince Xian came to the mansion just now and met that girl. It seems that he chased after that girl. Could it be that he fell in love with that girl? But even if he fell in love with her, so what? That girl has nothing substantial except her identity. It would be strange if Consort Ming fell in love with her. Madame of Duke Xing sneered. Prince Xian came to the mansion just now. Xiao Yanru's expression was a little strange. Yes, she found an excuse to see that girl, and then watched as the good girl left. She is indeed a restless person. Even after living in the nunnery for so long, she still hasn't changed her seductive aura. She really doesn't know how to behave. Madame of Duke Xing said with a sneer. Xiao Yanru fell silent, full of discomfort. Although she had never thought that Prince Xian would eventually step into that position, Prince Xian had always been good to her before. Every time he saw her, he would surround her and try to please her with those childs who flattered her. Unexpectedly, he changed his direction as soon as he saw Xiao Wanru, which made Xiao Yanru feel more and more anxious. Xiao Wanru really couldn't stay. She would be the biggest obstacle on her way to becoming the empress. Mother, what do you think Consort Ming will do if she knows this? Rolling her eyes, Xiao Yanru had an idea and said lightly. Her words reminded Madame of Duke Xing. She clapped her hands hard and nodded repeatedly. Okay, I'll find a chance to talk to Consort Ming about this. Although Rui, a great elder princess, was favored by the Empress Dowager, Consort Ming could be regarded as the emperor's favorite consort. In this respect, they were evenly matched. Seeing that Madame of Duke Xing had understood what she meant, Xiao Yanru turned around and left with a smile. Prince Xian. It was not only Consort Ming who could help her. Xiao Wanru gave her a surprise. Miss, Prince Xian's carriage is still behind us. Yu Jie said angrily. She had planned to go back slowly after leaving the city, but she didn't expect that the carriage of Prince Xian's mansion came in a hurry. Prince Xian, who was sitting in the carriage, even lifted the curtain and called her Miss. It was really improper. Yu Jie wanted to go over and beat Prince Xian, who didn't know when to stop. Didn't he know that his behavior would make her Miss suffer from filth? Stop the carriage and ask Prince Xian to talk in the pavilion in front. Xiao Wanru said decisively. It couldn't go on like this. Yes, Miss. Yu Jie hurriedly leaned out and said to the coachman outside. The coachman responded and stopped. As soon as their carriage stopped, the carriage of Prince Xian's mansion also stopped. Prince Xian, who was in the carriage, was even faster than Xiao Wanru. He immediately jumped out of the carriage, walked to Xiao Wanru's carriage in quick steps, and was about to reach out to help Xiao Wanru. Yu Jie jumped out of the carriage, pushed Prince Xian's hand away, and helped Xiao Wanru get out of the carriage carefully. Xiao Wanru stood still, glanced at Prince Xian coldly, and walked to the pavilion by the roadside where people could rest. Prince Xian hurriedly followed her and continued the topic he had talked about in Great Elder Princess's mansion. Cousin, I'll come up the mountain to look for you to fly paper phoenixes in a few days, okay? If you don't like the previous style, you can tell me. I'll ask someone to make whatever you like. Xiao Wanru continued to walk forward as if she didn't hear what he said. When she arrived at the pavilion, she turned around and bowed deeply to Prince Xian, who had followed her. Then she raised her watery eyes, looked at him coldly, and said, "Please tell me why you are here, Your Highness." Her question was so straightforward that Chu Liuxin couldn't answer it at all. He opened his mouth and blushed first. He looked at Xiao Wanru with a very complicated expression. He felt that he had made it very obvious. Why didn't cousin Wanru understand what he meant? But when he said it himself, he felt really embarrassed. In the past, although he would often fool around with a large group of hedonistic young masters and deliberately tease some beautiful girls, he had never been so attentive. Standing in front of her, looking at his figure reflected in those beautiful eyes, he actually couldn't say the nonsense that he used to fool around with her. If it were in the past, he could say such words casually. Why did he have to hold back his words now? Prince Xian's face turned red. He looked at Xiao Wanru eagerly, but didn't say a word. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Xiao Wanru said calmly, "Your Highness, do you know why I'm going to the Yuhui nunnery now?" Chu Liuxin felt that this question was very easy to answer. He breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Cousin, of course you're going to observe mourning for your parents. It's a good thing to live alone in the nunnery for 3 years. Since you're observing mourning, don't you think you should be quiet and isolated from men? Your Highness followed me all the way here just now. How can I bear it? What will others think of me? Will they think that what I've done is completely not in line with the duty of a filial daughter and that I'm not really observing mourning for my parents?" Xiao Wanru lowered her eyes, and her long and curly eyelashes fell quietly. Like a tired butterfly, she looked very cold and distant. Chu Liuxin opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. Just now, he was so excited to chase after her all the way that he didn't have time to think too much. He only knew that Xiao Hua and said that a fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's desire. If he didn't ask for it, how would the beauty know? At this moment, he felt hot in his heart and hurriedly chased after her, eager to let the beauty know his feelings. At this time, hearing Xiao Wanru's words, he immediately came to his senses. He took a few steps back and bowed deeply to Xiao Wanru. "Cousin, I'm really sorry. I've been rude." After saying that, although he was a little reluctant, he still turned around and left. "Miss, although His Highness Prince Xian followed our carriage before, he wasn't so anxious, nor did he yell so loudly." Yujie helped Xiao Wanru back to the carriage. After sitting down, she felt confused. According to Prince Xian's behavior just now, he was not an ignorant and rude person. How could he do such a thing? Chapter 554. In the quiet night, the ground was stained with blood. A blood-red beautiful man, dressed in snow-white clothes, quietly sat on a spacious chair. There was blood flowing in the air. A few men in black had died in front of him. Some had been decapitated, some had been stabbed in the heart. There were a few who were not dead yet, but they were lying in a pool of blood, unable to move. He raised his head and looked at the handsome man. If it weren't for such an environment, no one would know that the man in front of him was the real evil star. "Your Highness, how should we deal with them?" Xiao Xuanzi stepped on the blood and asked. "Kill them all." Chu Liuqin's lazy voice was a little faint, and his eyes swept over the ground soaked in blood. "What about the other 2 who are still alive? Do you want to ask them?" Xiao Xuanzi pointed to the corner and said. "Ask them. If you can't get anything out of them, skin them." Chu Liuqin said lightly. He stood up and turned to leave. You are just a sick man who is about to die. How dare you think about it? An assassin who was not dead felt that there was no way out, so he immediately cursed. An arrow flew out of nowhere and hit him in the chest. It was extremely fast and accurate, and then the voice suddenly stopped. There was a strange silence in the night. Go ahead and find out whether these people have 9 relatives who are not dead. If they don't tell us clearly, we will kill them all. Chu Luchen coughed in a low voice, and his handsome face with a sickly look looked a little tired. If others saw this, they would definitely think that this prince was born weak, but in fact, he hadn't slept since last night. Chu Luchen, you will die a horrible death. Someone screamed and also hoped that he would be killed by an arrow. He had taken an arrow to his chest and ended his life. At the very least, his entire clan would not have to fear being slaughtered. However, this time, he was not killed by the arrow. Instead, he was knocked unconscious by the hilt of a saber. They were assassins who came to kill Chu Luchen. Originally, they thought it was not a big deal. Everyone in the world knew that Prince Chen was going to die. Even if he was not really going to die, he would be extremely weak. However, they did not expect that the first assassin to make a move would be stabbed to death by the sword he drew from the guard beside him and stabbed in the chest. How could Prince Chen, the eldest son of the former emperor who was so sick and weak that he couldn't even walk a few steps, stab people with a backhand? His skill was so skillful and sharp that ordinary people couldn't compare with him. The assassins immediately felt that something was wrong. They wanted to escape, but they didn't expect that when this idea came up, all of them were either dead or injured. Now Prince Chen meant that those who were not dead had to tell the truth, or his 9 relatives would be killed. At this moment, the assassins who were still alive wanted to die. Your Highness, I'm willing to tell you who wants to kill you. A man in black suddenly shouted. Chu Luchen stopped and looked at an assassin lying not far away. His leg was injured, so he could only crawl over at this time. His cold eyes fell on the assassin who crawled over. His face was still covered with a cloth, and the wounds on his body were bleeding as he crawled. But even so, the man in black still slowly approached Chu Luchen and said, Your Highness, I know who it is. Please spare my life, Your Highness. Her voice was filled with tears because of panic. She held her injured thigh tightly with one hand and moved to Chu Luchen with difficulty. Chu Luchen looked at him quietly. His handsome eyes looked cold and bloodthirsty in the night, as deep as the bottomless darkness. Tearing apart his gentle appearance, he was more like the Shura king in the bloody night. The assassin slowly crawled to Chu Luchen, raised his head, and reached out to pull Chu Luchen's robe. Before his hand touched the sleeve, an arrow had nailed his hand to the ground, and the assassin screamed. The hand that was nailed to the ground struggled hard, and 2 small needles in his hand fell to the ground, making a clear sound of impact. It was iron. If he had grabbed Chu Luchen's robe, the 2 poisonous needles would have stabbed into Chu Luchen's body silently. Let him have a try. Chu Luchen took back his sleeve crossbow, and his eyes were shimmering and beautiful. Xiao Xuanzi answered and walked over. He carefully picked up the bright end of the poisonous needle and stabbed it into the assassin's hand. The scream sounded again. Cut off his tongue and then stab it. Chu Luchen said lightly. Immediately a guard came over and quickly reached out to grab the assassin's neck. He used a sword to hook it, and half of the tongue fell to the ground immediately. The assassin curled up in pain, and all his voice was hoarse in his throat, and he could only make a hissing sound. Xiao Xuanzi picked up the poisonous needle again and stabbed it. All the other assassins who were still alive were stunned, and they no longer had the determination to die. Chu Luchen walked out of the yard slowly. Xiao Xuanzi casually threw away the needles and hurried to catch up with him. This was a yard outside the city, and it was also Chu Luchen's recent resting place. It was not far from Yuhui Nunnery. He didn't expect that it was targeted by someone. Originally, he was going to live in Yuhui Nunnery for a few days, but thinking that all the people were women, he went back to his own yard at the foot of the mountain. Master, what should we do after we interrogate these people? Xiao Xuanzi walked a few steps quickly, walked behind his master, and carefully asked again. Deal with them. Chu Luqin said lazily. Leave none alive. Shall we send one or two to the palace? Xiao Xuanzi asked in surprise. In the past, his master would always leave one or two alive in such a situation. No, no one cares about these people. Chu Luqin sneered and said. Under the moonlight, his smile became elegant again, as if the evil star in the sea of blood was not him. Master, do you mean that they were not sent by those masters? Xiao Xuanzi couldn't help asking. After asking, he realized what he had said and hurriedly knelt down. Master, please forgive me. Get up and prepare a carriage for me. I'm going to Yuhui Nunnery. Chu Luqin said casually. Your Highness, are you going to see fifth miss like this? Xiao Xuanzi was shocked and said. Can't I see her? Chu Luqin's face became cold, and his expression became more and more gloomy. Master, you are full of murderous intent now. If fifth miss finds it, she will be afraid. Xiao Xuanzi hurriedly lowered his head and explained in fear. The coldness in the air slowly faded, and then he heard Chu Luqin's voice, go and prepare the bath water. After washing, the heavy blood color disappeared, and the expression on Chu Luqin's face could be called gentle again. He changed into a moon-white robe and put on a light gray cloak. Only his loose hair was not tied up because it was half dry. The carriage had already been prepared. Chu Luqin got on the carriage at the gate of the village, and Xiao Xuanzi also ran to the carriage. They went to Yuhui Nunnery. When they arrived at the gate of Yuhui Nunnery, they were also stopped by the people on duty of the Ministry of Justice. Our master is Prince Chen. Xiao Xuanzi poked his head out and said angrily. Greetings, Your Highness. The two people of the Ministry of Justice hurriedly lowered their heads and knelt down. Go and prepare a courtyard for our master. Our master is going to have a rest here today. Xiao Xuanzi jumped out of the carriage and ordered. But, at this time, the people of the Ministry of Justice looked at the moon in the sky awkwardly. It was almost midnight now, and the nuns of Yuhui Nunnery had already gone to bed. Where could they find a courtyard for Prince Chen to have a rest? Hurry up. If anything happens to our master, you will be killed. Xiao Xuanzi said in a sharp voice. The two people of the Ministry of Justice looked at each other and dared not to say no. One of them was smart and hurriedly went to find a courtyard. They had been here for a period of time, so they knew which courtyards for pilgrims were empty. Prince Chen was of high status, so of course, they had to choose the best courtyard. A locked courtyard was kicked open heavily, and Chu Luqin's people entered it. After checking that there was nothing unusual, Chu Luqin walked in slowly with Xiao Xuanzi. There was actually a large courtyard. Judging from the rules of this courtyard, it didn't seem to be for ordinary people, but it was excellent for Prince Chen to live in. Chu Luqin looked at the surrounding environment with a strange look. It turned out to be the courtyard that he was going to live in before. The corners of his handsome lips curled up, and the shadow on his body faded away a lot. Xiao Xuanzi also breathed a sigh of relief. Master, do you want to have a rest first? Pointing to the door of the main room, Xiao Xuanzi asked. Today his master's breath was unstable, so he was very worried. No. Chu Luqin stood in the courtyard with his hair hanging loosely over his shoulders and looked at the sky. Under Xiao Xuanzi's surprised gaze, he jumped up and rushed to the opposite roof. Hurry up. Xiao Xuanzi waved his hand, and several black shadows followed Chu Luqin, and then disappeared in front of Xiao Xuanzi with Chu Luqin. Xiao Xuanzi frowned tightly. His master's breath was very unstable today, so how could he not be worried? In the past, when his master's breath was unstable, his master's bad mood might lead to illness. At this time, his master still wanted to go out. Xiao Xuanzi was so anxious that he paced around on the spot for a while, and then ordered someone to immediately go down the mountain to invite the imperial physician who had stayed in the farm before. It's better to be prepared. I'm afraid that my master's old illness will break out again. Under the treatment of Dr. Qi and Mingqiu Nun, my master can drink medicine at ease and will no longer abandon himself to despair like before. My body is almost fine now. But today his master's mood fluctuated so much that Xiao Xuanzi almost didn't dare to ask more questions. Xiao Xuanzi sighed helplessly and looked in the direction where Chu Luqian disappeared. Xiao Wanru was sleeping. She went down the mountain and solved some things. After coming back, she went to bed early. After hearing that Xiao Yanru had come back, she ignored her. At this time, she was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, she felt a gust of cold wind blowing and somehow had a dream. In the dream, there seemed to be white sails everywhere, and the room was snow-white. She knelt in front of the empty coffin in a white mourning dress. Was it in the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion? It was snow-white there. It was the scene after when Shichi died. Then an old woman came in angrily with a group of people and slapped her hard in the face twice. Her head hit the coffin heavily, and blood immediately flowed down from her forehead. You're dressed up gorgeously, bewitching and pretentious. Since you dare to be so disgraceful in Lingchang, our manor doesn't dare to keep you. Scram out of the Wen manor. I'll make the decision for my son to divorce you, you witch. Chapter 555. Dressed up and made by a demon. Just because her lips were brighter than ordinary people, she was charged with such a crime. Humiliation and anger made her suddenly open her eyes. Hearing her rapid breathing in the darkness, she held a corner of the quilt tightly and looked at the darkness above her head. It turned out that the reason why she was driven out of the Wen's mansion in the last life was that she was framed for dressing up and making by a demon in the morning hall because her lips were brighter. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? A creepy voice suddenly came from the darkness. It was cold in the night. If Xiao Wanru hadn't recognized Chu Liuqian's voice at the first time, she would have screamed immediately. Lifting the gauze curtain, she didn't find anyone, so she asked hesitantly, Your Highness? Oh. After a long while, she heard the answer. Xiao Wanru turned her eyes to the ground. There was a mat in that direction, but she couldn't see anyone sitting there. Could it be that he was lying on the mat? With the faint moonlight coming in from the window, there seemed to be someone lying there. In order to see the moonlight in the evening, the screen in front of the bed had been moved away. Sitting up from the bed, she carefully moved in the direction of the mat. There was nothing else in the silence room, so she was not afraid of tripping. Suddenly, she kicked something and fell forward involuntarily. Xiao Wanru reached out to grab something subconsciously, but she couldn't grab anything in the darkness. Just as she closed her eyes helplessly, her slender waist was held by a big hand. She was held into a thin and solid arms, and then they fell together. Subconsciously, she reached out and touched it. The skin under her hand was as smooth as jade. She didn't know what she touched, so she touched it again. This time, she touched an extremely soft part. Why did you touch my face? In the darkness, Chu Liuqian's voice was indiscernible. Xiao Wanru loosened her hand and immediately knew that she had touched his lips just now. She couldn't help blushing. After calming down, she asked, Your Highness, why are you here? She reached out and touched the side again. She seemed to have touched a warm and wet place just now. It was as smooth as silk, but it was very wet. Chu Liuqian's hair was wet. Your Highness, let me help you stir your hair. It's not good to blow your hair like this. It will hurt your health. Xiao Wanru pushed him hard. Chu Liuqian was not an ordinary person, and his body was weaker than others. The restraint around her slender waist was loosened. Xiao Wanru turned over and sat up. She touched the side and found that the stool on the table should be on the side. She remembered that there was a clean handkerchief there when she fell asleep. He touched it a little, and sure enough, he felt it. Your Highness, sit up. I'll help you stir your hair. The figure in the dark did not move or make a sound, as if he did not hear her. Xiao Wanru reached out to touch again. This time, she didn't know what she felt. She reached out to touch the slight rise and fall. It should be his chest. Your Highness, please sit up. His Highness seemed to be in a bad mood. Otherwise, he wouldn't have run out of the bathroom without drying his hair. This time, after a while, she heard the sound of clothes rubbing, and then Chu Luchen sat down with his back facing her. She wrapped his black hair with the handkerchief in her hand. Xiao Wanru carefully stirred it for him, and then put it together and stirred it again. Someone tried to assassinate me. Chu Luchen finally said with a bit of malice. Your Highness, have you been injured? Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. She involuntarily pulled harder, which made Chu Luchen have a headache. Can you be gentle? Your Highness, I can't see clearly in the dark. Xiao Wanru apologized insincerely. Then she pulled harder again. This time, she pulled harder than before. Chu Luchen couldn't help crying out in pain. He said angrily, Can you get better? Xiao Wanru raised the corners of her mouth with a smile. Your Highness, rest assured. I will be absolutely careful this time. Your Highness, tell me about the assassin just now. After being pulled by her for a few times, Chu Luchen felt that he was not interested in talking to her about it. He said lazily, Isn't it just about the assassin? It's not a big deal. It's not like I haven't encountered it before that you pull my hair. Your Highness, have you been assassinated several times? Xiao Wanru asked. There have been assassinations since I was a child in the palace. At that time, I was still a child, and they poisoned me. I don't know what they were thinking. I'm just a sick child who can't do anything, but they can't tolerate me. Chu Luchen said casually. In the darkness, he raised his long and narrow eyes, with a trace of enchanting cruelty that had not been seen in the past. Hearing that he had left the palace early, Xiao Wanru's heart softened. How difficult it must be for such a young and sick child to live in the palace. Xiao Wanru's heart softened, and she pulled harder. Haven't the Empress Dowager and the Emperor always protected you? I heard that they were very good to you when you were in the palace. I'm a surviving member of the former emperor, and I have no parents. Even though Imperial Grandmother is devoted to me, there are always things that she can't see. There are many ways to torture a child in the palace. Imperial Grandmother can't protect him all the time even if she wants to. Later, I was poisoned, so Imperial Grandmother agreed to let me leave the palace. Chu Luchen said lightly. Xiao Wanru touched his slightly dry hair, took out a small comb from the pocket of the table, and combed it for him. His hair was extremely smooth and comfortable to touch. Your Highness, you are the son of the former emperor. How can you be a surviving member of the former emperor? Xiao Wanru said softly, the son of the former emperor is a surviving member of the former emperor. In any case, the bloodline of the former emperor was extremely noble, not to mention that he was the legitimate eldest son of the former emperor. If the former emperor had passed away a few years later, the throne would have been his long ago. How could there be the current emperor? But now she felt that he was an orphan without parents. So what if he had a noble identity? The comb under her hand became softer and softer. It's not bad to have no parents. At least no one can control me. It was like this when I was a child, and it's the same now. Chu Luchen said slowly. There was an inexplicable meaning in his words. Xiao Wanru could sense something strange, but she couldn't tell the reason. She always felt that his words were very meaningful. Xiao Wanru had always felt that her fate was sad, but compared with this person, it seemed that her fate was not so sad. At least old Madame Qin's love for her was real, and she had protected her for so many years. Whether in the previous life or this life, old Madame Qin loved her very much, especially when she was a child. During that period of time, she was the most innocent, and old Madame Qin had always protected her. Chu Luchen was different. He should have known his identity a long time ago. Not only did he know that he was the humiliated son of the former emperor, but he was also sick and weak. Even though the Empress Dowager protected him wholeheartedly, the imperial palace was not a good place. From childhood to adulthood, he must have suffered more than her. Your Highness, the Empress Dowager has always been on your side. Xiao Wanru comforted him. She didn't mention the emperor. Although it was said that the emperor loved this nephew like a pearl and treated him better than his own son, in Xiao Wanru's opinion, it was just because he knew that he was weak and could not live long. If Chu Luqian was strong, the emperor would probably be very afraid of him and would definitely not treat him better than his own sons. Imperial grandmother is very good, Chu Luqian said lightly. Suddenly, he changed the topic. Do you know how I dealt with those assassins and those who poisoned me in the past? Xiao Wanru instinctively felt that she shouldn't ask this question, but the next moment, the prince didn't wait for her to ask and said, I skinned them and pulled out their tendons and sent them to their masters. Several of them fainted directly when they saw the bloody things on the table, and then shouted and went to my uncle to make a scene, demanding to find out the truth. There was a smile in Chu Liuqian's voice, which was very pleasant, but it also seemed to be a chilly wind blowing from the 9 nether hell, which made people feel inexplicably creepy. Xiao Wanru's hand paused slightly, and she felt that the whole space was filled with a strange smell of blood because of Chu Liuqian's words. What's wrong? Are you afraid? Are you afraid that one day you will find a piece of human skin on the table? Chu Liuqian's voice became more and more tyrannical, as if he came from the 9 nether hell. Xiao Wanru slowly slid the comb down, picked it up again, and then slid it down again. She looked very calm, and her breath was not chaotic at all. I didn't murder you, Your Highness. Why do you bother to scare me? Just now, he suddenly recalled his previous dream. In that dream, everyone was scolding him for being shameless, as if he had really done something unforgivable. But in fact, it was only because his lips were darker than the average person's, that's all. If you want to punish someone, you can always find a pretext. In this life, she was also a ghost who climbed up from the 9 nether hell. Compared with Chu Luqian, she was even worse. Why should she be afraid of what he said just now? People who had died once would always be especially brave. Aren't you afraid of me? Feeling that the comb behind him was still so calm and did not tremble at all, Chu Luqian asked. What's there to be afraid of? Your Highness was also harmed by others. You don't need to be kind to those evil people. Being kind to them is just being evil to others. If those people had succeeded, how could Your Highness still be alive now? If someone must die, it is naturally better for them to die. Xiao Wanru said lightly. Her words were extremely cold, and she didn't care about the life and death of others. Chu Liuqian's fingers moved, and he inexplicably felt relieved. The tyrannical look in his eyes slowly faded. He turned his hand, reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's slender waist, and lay down. Xiao Wanru was pressed down on him. The comb in her hand was still combing his hair, and she didn't have time to take it away for a while. Unfortunately, it happened to scratch his face, and she heard him groan. Xiao Wanru hurriedly threw away the comb in her hand and said anxiously, Your Highness, are you hurt? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.